6. Bheeshm Parva. 1. The field of Kurukshetra. The Pandav army was stationed on the western side of the field. It was facing the east. Yudhishthir had stationed his army in the neighborhood of the lake called Samantapanchaka. Early in the morning the Pandavs saw the white umbrella in the heart of the Kaurav camp. It was the insignia of royalty. Seeing that umbrella, the hearts of the Pandav warriors thrilled with thoughts of war. Arjuna and Krishn blew their conchs. There were resounding noises from the Kaurav camp. Excitement could be felt everywhere. The warriors on either side met and set down the rules which had to be followed by both the armies. The fight should be between equals. For instance, a fight should be between 2 chariots or 2 archers or 2 mace holders. If during the fight, one should withdraw, he should not be harassed. If the fight is with words, the opponent should reply with words and not with arrows. Anyone who runs away from the field should not be killed. No one who is unprepared or frightened should be attacked. Charioteers, animals and servants who had to blow the war trumpets, drums and cymbals should not be attacked. These were some of the rules of chivalrous fighting which had to be observed. After these rules had been agreed upon, the 2 armies prepared themselves for the great encounter. The previous night Vyas came to Dhritarashtra, his son. Vyas said, "My son, dreadful days have come. Your sons and other kings, all the other kings who have now assembled, will die in a few days. This is the law of fate. There is no use in your feeling sorry for this. If you want to see the war, I will grant you your eyes." Poor Dhritarashtra said, "My lord, I have been sightless all my life. I do not know what it is to see. I do not want the use of my eyes to watch my sons die. No, I will be satisfied if I can hear about it from someone. If there is someone to see the war and relate it to me vividly, I will be satisfied." Vyas said, "So be it. This Sanjay will give you a true report of the entire war. I will grant him inner sight. He will be like the rishis who can see all that is to be seen. Sanjay will see everything that happens in the war. He will know even the thoughts of all of them, whether spoken or whether it is just in the mind of a man. Sanjay will know it, whether in the night or in the day. Sanjay will see it all. Every day he will be on the field of battle and see the battle being fought. He will relate it to you during the night. He will know no fatigue or exhaustion." Vyas said that omens were all prophesying the defeat and death of the Kauravas and the success of the Pandavs. He comforted his unhappy son and went away. The account of the war from now on is all in the words of Sanjay as he related it to Dhritarashtra. The king was busy arranging his troops. He spoke to his brother Duryodhan, "See that chariots driven by the best of men is placed near our grandfather. The war we have always wanted has now become a reality. The greatest task ahead of us is the protection of Bheeshm. He is capable of destroying the army of the Pandavs which is protected by Drishtadyumna. Grandfather has told us, you remember, that he will not fight with Shikhandi since he was once a woman called Amba who changed her sex later. The Pandavs are sure to know this fact, and it is very necessary to protect grandfather from Shikhandi. Let all our warriors try their best to kill Shikhandi. Arjun's chariot is protected by Yudhamenyu and Uttamaja on the left and right. Arjun is guarding Shikhandi. My dear Duryodhan, we must be careful and prevent danger from coming near our commander. Remember that always." 10 Ukshohinis of the Kauravas were arranged in a formidable phalanx. The 11th was under the immediate leadership of Bheeshm, who was in the front. Bheeshm's horses were white. His banner was a golden palm tree with 5 stars. His chariot was of silver. With his white hair and white dress, seated in the silver chariot, Bheeshm looked like the rising moon. The sight of the veteran warrior struck terror into the hearts of the enemies. The sun had just appeared in the east with his rays red with the touch of dawn. Bheeshm addressed his troops, "The gates of heaven have today opened wide to let in all those who are to die. All of you must fight without any thought of the future. A glorious future is in store for all of us. It is not glorious for a kshatriya to die in his bed, to die after an illness. A kshatriya should die only on the battlefield. Prepare yourselves to win or to die. All the kshatriyas were ready to die. Only one man had laid down his arms, and that was Radhaya. He had taken an oath that he would not fight as long as Bheeshm was alive. The supporters of Bheeshm were led by Ashvathama. He was accompanied by several of the heroes of whom Purusravas was one. Salya was another. 7 warriors were there to guard the great man against the approach of Shikhandi. Duryodhan could be seen at the center of the army. His famous banner was clearly visible, the serpent embroidered on a cloth of gold. Looking at the immense army and its commander, Yudhishthir spoke to Arjun, "Their army is so huge. It is made up of 11 Akshohinis, and ours is made up of just 7. How are you going to arrange our army against that of Bheeshm? It is indeed formidable." Arjun said that he would try and arrange the army in the phalanx by name Vajra. This was impenetrable. It was the favorite arrangement of Indra, and from him it got its name. Drishtadhum was in the van of the army. His supporter was Bheem. Yudhishthir was at the center of the phalanx. Shikhandi was in the middle too, supported by Arjun. Drishtadhum was protected by Bheem. The right side of the army was protected by Satyaki. The Kauravas could now see the chariot of Arjun. It was a beautiful chariot. The terrible ape banner was to be seen from a great distance. The great Hanuman had taken his place on it. The white horses gleamed in the morning sun. Krishn's smiling face could be seen. His left hand was holding the reins, and his right hand held the whip. The sight of the great pair Krishn and Arjun was thrilling. The commanders of the Kaurav army, Drona and Kripa, saluted them mentally, since they knew that they were looking at Nar and Narayan. Krishn had now brought the chariot to the front of the army. He spoke to Arjun. He said, "Arjun, be firm now. Look on this Bheeshm. He is the lion among the Kaurav heroes. This great hero, this war veteran will be your first victim. Prepare yourself, Arjun, for the great war." 2. Yudhishthir's chivalry. A sudden silence fell on the entire army. It looked like a painted picture. The Kuru veteran on the one side with all the heroes surrounding him, the great Drishtadhum and Bheem with all the other warriors on the side of the Pandavs, Krishn and Arjun in the golden chariot drawn by the snow-white steeds. In the silence, an amazing thing happened. Yudhishthir suddenly removed his armor. He dropped all his weapons to the ground. He walked with bare feet towards the enemy camp. Everyone was watching him with bated breath. He was walking towards his dear grandfather. Looking at him, Bheem followed him. Arjun and Satydev with Nakul and Krishn walked with him. No one could understand why Yudhishthir was doing it. Arjun said, "My lord, what is the reason behind this sudden decision of yours to go towards your enemies?" Bheem said, "My lord, you have removed your armor and so have we. You have dropped your weapons too. You are walking fast towards the enemies. Have you forgotten us, your brothers? Why are you doing this, my brother?" Nakul said, "With this action of yours the hearts of your brothers have become nervous." "Why this action on your part?" Satydev said, "Instead of fighting with them, you are exposing yourself to the enemy. Why do you do it?" Yudhishthir did not answer any of these questions. He was walking all the time. Krishn looked at them reassuringly and said, "I see his purpose." Yudhishthir is now going to Bheeshm, Drona, Kripa and Salya to ask them for permission to fight with them. They are your elders. It has been said that if a man fights with his elders after getting their permission, he is sure to win the war. If, however, he does not care to ask them for permission, he will certainly be defeated. This is the reason for the strange behavior of Yudhishthir. They walked silently after this. Everyone was watching Yudhishthir. The Kauravas were amazed to see him. They all thought that at the last moment Yudhishthir had lost his nerve, that he was proceeding towards Bheeshm to beg him to stop the war. Yudhishthir came near the army which surrounded Bheeshm. It made way for him. Bheeshm was waiting for this noblest of men, with a smile on his lips. Yudhishthir came near him. His eyes were full of tears. He fell at the feet of Bheeshm, and so did his brothers. Yudhishthir said, "My lord, war has now become inevitable. We have to fight with you. Please bless us and say that we will come out of the war with victory." Bheeshm was pleased with this gesture on the part of Yudhishthir. He said, "My child, you know that victory is yours. Krishn is on your side. That means that Dharma is on your side. Man is a slave to wealth and not wealth to man. I have to fight against you since my wealth is that of the Kaurav monarch. I have no right to the throne of the Pauravas. I renounced it long ago. I have been supported by the king. It is my duty to fight for him. But you know that my love and blessings will always be yours." Yudhishthir went to Drona, Kripa and Salya. Having obtained their permission and blessings, he returned to his camp. When he came back, they all knew that war was to start any moment, and that the Pandavs would win. When Yudhishthir was talking to Salya, Krishn managed to go to Radhaya. He said, "Radhaya, I hear that because of your hatred for Bheeshm you have sworn not to fight until he dies. Once he is killed you have got to fight. Even now it is not too late. Come away to the side of the Pandavs. Or why not join them for a few days? You can fight with Bheeshm, your enemy. After he is dead you can go back to Duryodhan." Radhaya laughed at Krishn and said, "Why these childish arguments, Krishn? Indeed, your affection for the Pandavs is great. But my lord, I am fond of my friend Duryodhan, and I have already laid my life down for him. It is all a question of days, Krishn, just days. Leave me to my fate. It has been ordained that way. No one can change it." Krishn's eyes were filled with tears at the sight of this man, the noblest and the most unfortunate of all the heroes that were to die in a few days. Having returned from the presence of Bheeshm, Yudhishthir announced to both the armies, "The war is just about to begin. If there is anyone on the side of the Kauravas who is willing to join me, he is welcome." Hearing these words of Yudhishthir, Yuyatsu, one of the brothers of Duryodhan, came to Yudhishthir and said, "I wish to come away to your side if you will have me." Yudhishthir was pleased with him. He said, "Certainly. I am glad you are coming to our side. I am glad that, when my uncle Dhritarashtra dies, one of his sons will be alive to perform the funeral rites for him." These gentle but deadly words coming from the lips of Yudhishthir made the Kauravas lose their complacency for a moment, and they shuddered involuntarily since they were at once reminded of the oath of Bheem. Yudhishthir embraced Yuyatsu and welcomed him. Yudhishthir put on his armor, then Bheem, then Arjun, then Nakul and then Sahdev. The sight of these great men was terrible. They looked really angry and formidable like death. All the warriors ascended their chariots. Conchs were blown on either side. War drums and trumpets filled the air with din. Duryodhan watched the army of the Pandavs and the expert manner in which the Vaya had been arranged. He pondered for a moment and went to Drona. He said, "Look, my lord. Look at this immense army of the Pandavs. Drishtadhum, your disciple, has been responsible for this excellent Vaya. I can see all the many heroes there, all as mighty as Bheem or Arjun. There, right in the van, I can see Satyaki. Further up, the two veterans Virat and Drupad are stationed. Look this side. The powerful Drishtaketa, Chekithan, and the Lord of Kasi are just waiting for the war to begin. Just behind them I can see Purujit, Kunti-bhoja and Saibya. Two other sons of Drupad are by the side of Arjun's chariot, Yudhamenyu and Uttamaja. Abhimanyu is there with the sons of Draupadi. They are all Maharatikas, my lord. Let us turn our eyes to our army. I will repeat the names of the mighty men on our side. Your honored self and Bheeshm, the Kuru ancient, Radhaya the undaunted is here, and Kripa. He has never once known what it is to lose in a battle. Ashvathama and Vikarna are with me, and Purusravas, the son of Samdut. These are but a few of the many heroes who have laid down their lives for me. This army of mine is unlimited, led by Bheeshm, my dear revered grandfather, while their army seems to be limited though protected by Bheem. My lord, in the war which is to begin any moment now, I want you all to guard Bheeshm. Bheeshm saw from a distance Duryodhan scanning the armies on either side, and he saw him conferring with his guru Drona. Bheeshm wanted to cheer the heart of his grandson, and so he let forth his battle cry like the roar of a lion and blew his conch. It was taken up by the others. From the golden chariot of Arjun, yoked with the famed white horses, came the pure notes of the Panchajanya, and then came the notes from Arjun's conch Devdutta. Bheem took up his Pandra and blew on it. Yudhishthir next took up his Anantavijay. Nakul put his conch Sagasha to his lips and Satdev's Manipushpeka could be heard after that. Then followed all the others blowing their conchs one after the other, the king of Kasi, Shikhandi, Satyaki, Drishtadhum, Virat, Drupad, the sons of Draupadi, and Abhimanyu. The sound of all the many conchs together was formidable, and the very heavens resounded with the terrible reverberation. 3. The Bhagavad Gita. Arjun's chariot had come to the front. His banner was presided over by Hanuman. He could now see the sons of Dhritarashtra, and the vaya set up by his grandfather. In the deafening noise set up by the several conchs and the war drums and trumpets, Arjun, taking up his Gandiv in his hand, said, Krishn, set my chariot right in the midst of the two contending armies. I want to see all the heroes who are array against us. I want to have a good look on these men who are so eager for battle. I want to see with whom I have to fight in this war. I want to see all the many heroes who are so eager to please Duryodhan. The chariot rumbled a few yards ahead, and Krishn placed it just where Arjun wanted it, in front of Bheeshm, Drona, and the others. He said, Look, Arjun. Look at this great army with Bheeshm and Drona leading it. Look on all the Kauravas assembled here to die at your hands. Arjun cast his eyes on the grand spectacle. He saw the heroes ready for battle, and he saw there all those who were dear to him. They were his grandfathers, teachers, uncles, brothers, sons, dear friends, comrades. He looked again and again at them, and all on a sudden he was overcome with infinite compassion for all of them. His voice shook with grief and he said, Krishn, I feel an awful weakness stealing over me. My mouth has gone dry all on a sudden, and I am trembling all over. Krishn, my head is reeling, and I feel faint. My limbs refuse to bear me up. My form burns as if with fever, and my Gandiv is slipping from my grasp. I look at all these who are my kinsmen, and I feel that I cannot fight with them. Look on all these omens, Krishn. They do not bode any good to anyone. I do not think there is any good in killing my kinsmen. I do not want to win this war. I do not want any kingdoms, nor do I want the pleasures of this world. I do not see any use for them. These great heroes all mean so much to me, and they are there, ready to fight. I will never kill them, not for lordship of the three worlds. For the passing pleasure of ruling this world, why should I kill the sons of Dhritarashtra? They have been greedy, evil, avaricious, covetous. I grant all that. But the fact remains that they are my cousins, and it is a sin to kill one's own kinsmen. I would rather turn away from the war. It will even be better if I am killed by Duryodhan. I do not want to fight. Arjun collapsed on the seat of his chariot. He had thrown away his bow and arrows, and his heart was laden with grief. His eyes were rilled with tears, and his heart with great pity. Krishna looked at him for a moment and said, Arjun, how did this uneasiness steal over you? Can you not realize that the situation is critical? You have reached a crisis in your life and you allow yourself to be swayed by these feelings. This feeling is anything but noble. It will lead you away from heaven. It will be a blot on your fair name. You are courting ignominy. Throw away this momentary weakness of heart and get up. Do not forget your manliness. Come Arjun, get ready for the fight. Arjun would not be shaken out of his despondency. How can I aim my arrows at Bheeshm and Drona? Krishn, they have to be worshipped by me and instead, I am trying to kill them. It is not right. Their blood will tinge every enjoyment which I may get in this world later. I cannot do it. Krishn, you know that I am not a coward. This is not weakness. It is compassion for the enemy. I do not know what I am to do. You tell me. Tell me what I should do. I leave it in your hands. Do with me what you will. I am sure nothing will wipe away this grief, not even the rewards promised in heaven and earth. Arjun sat silent, refusing to fight. Krishn smiled a little at Arjun and said, Arjun, you are grieving for those who do not have to be grieved for. And yet, you talk as though you are very wise. A wise man never weeps. He weeps not for the dead, nor for the living. Believe me, the eternal soul is imperishable. No one can comprehend it. It is only the bodies that are impermanent. Does not one pass the different stages in life? Childhood, youth and old age. It is the body which goes through these stages. And even as these are natural stages, death, which is the fourth stage, is natural too. Death makes the soul pass from one body to another. It is only when the senses clash with the objects of the senses that there come into being heat and cold, which affect the body, pleasure and pain which affect the mind. These are but passing clouds and they do not last forever. You should learn to bear with them. When you learn to be unaffected by them, you become fit for immortality. All this immense universe is pervaded by the eternal, and that can never be destroyed. Arjun, you think that you are the one who kills and your victim thinks that he is killed. But then, you are both wrong. You do not kill and your victim is not killed. He cannot be killed. What is not born can never die. It is not slain when the body is slain. Once you know that it is imperishable and eternal, once you know that it has no birth and no change, how can you slay? Once a garment is old and torn, man throws it away, and he takes up a new garment. Even so, the soul, when the body becomes old, worn out, unlivable, abandons it and takes up a new body. You say that you are killing your enemy. You are wrong. Weapons cannot hurt the soul, fire cannot burn it, and water cannot wet it. It is eternal and it is the same forever. Once you realize this truth, there is no need for you to grieve. Let us assume that you do not know the highest truth. Even then you should not grieve. You know that a man's death is decided the moment he is born. Whenever anything is born it is sure to die, and whenever anything dies it is sure to be born again. And so you should not grieve. How things and beings come into the world is a mystery, and the end is again a mystery. We know only the portion which is intermediate, this transit on the earth. Why then should you grieve? The soul that resides in the body can never die, and so there is no need for you to weep. Even if you do not comprehend all this, let me tell you that you should fight since you are a Kshatriya. It is your duty to fight. A righteous war is the greatest good that can happen to a Kshatriya. By chance it has just come to happen for you. The gates of heaven are opened out to you. If you turn away from this war, which is a righteous war, you are courting infamy. You are shirking from your duty, and that is a sin. The world will talk about this shameful behavior of yours, and for a man who has had so many honors heaped on him in times of yore, this will be worse than death. Who, do you think, will understand the motives which prompted you to turn away from fighting? They will think that you are afraid to fight. You will be slighted by men who thought well of you once. Your enemies will laugh at you and slander you. Can anything be more painful than this? If you die fighting, you are assured of a place in heaven. If you win this war, this earth is yours. Make up your mind and rise up, Arjun. You have to fight. You must. You are afraid that sin will cling to you. I will tell you how you can escape sin. Treat pleasure and pain alike, gain and loss alike, loss and victory alike. Let not your mind be troubled by thoughts on these. Get ready just to fight, and I can assure you, you will not incur any sin. I will tell you more about this rule of conduct. It is called Buddha Yoga. If you follow it, you will escape the bondage of karma, the bondage following work which looks for results, benefits, fruits. This is not like the karma kanda of the rituals where there is the danger of incurring sin because of a single lapse in the procedure. The yoga I am talking about is different. No effort is ever lost and no harm is ever done. Follow it but a little and you will be free of the great fear. Arjun, try and rise above the reach of the three gunas. Try to be unaffected by the pairs of opposites. Think only on purity. Do not think of possessing anything. Think only of the soul and let that be the one aim in you. Do not think of other things. Your duty is to work. Your right is only to the work. As for the fruits of the work, you have no right on them. Do not think of that at all. When you perform an action, do not think of the results or rewards. But then, do not delude yourself that an action will help you. No. You have no right to be inactive either. Do not attach yourself to anything. Do your work with an evenness of mind. You must be unaffected either by success or failure. It is this evenness of mind which is called yoga. Arjun intervened and asked, Krishn, tell me more about the man who has evenness of mind, whose intellect is steady, whose mind is unclouded. Describe him to me. Krishn must have been pleased when he found that Arjun showed signs of waking up from the stupor he had fallen into. Warming up to his subject, Krishn said, I will be happy to tell you that. He is called a Sthidaprajna. The first thing about him is the fact that he has cast off all the desires of the mind, and his spirit finds comfort in itself. His pulse does not fail when sorrow approaches him, and it does not beat faster when joy approaches him. Three things have no place in his mental makeup: desire, fear and anger. He is never attached to anyone or anything. Good and evil are treated with the same equanimity by him. He does not rejoice and he does not hate. A man with evenness of mind withdraws his senses into him, as a tortoise does its limbs. Once the senses are withdrawn, the soul loses the appetite for the objects of the senses. Even the taste for them, which may linger on, will drop away when the supreme is realized. It is by no means easy. The wisest of men will find that, sometimes, the senses will rebel and sweep the mind in their current, and then the mind will be like a boat tossed to and from in a gale. The senses should be controlled, and this is possible if you meditate on me. Once attachment for the objects of the senses is given a place in the mind, it will be disastrous. Because attachment gives rise to desire, and desire breeds anger. The next step is delusion, and the mind gets confused and understanding is lost. Destruction follows in its wake. So the senses should be controlled, and the man into whom all desires enter as the waters enter into the sea, attains peace. This is the divine state, and that is the bliss of the Brahmic state from where no man can ever fall again. Arjun, who had been listening carefully, intervened with a question, Krishn, you say that the realization of the Brahman is the highest state. Why then do you ask me to do this dreadful task? Krishn said, there are two pathways of approach to that state. One is knowledge by meditation, and the other is work for men of action. Remember, no man can be still, even for a moment. He has to do work. It is the law of nature that man should work. You may find a man who sits still without doing anything. But his mind is still engaged in the world of the senses. He is a hypocrite. There is then the other type of man, the Sthidaprajna I spoke about. He has controlled his senses along with the mind, and when he works he does so without attachment. He is infinitely superior to any other kind of man. You must do your duty. By not working, you cannot live. Even the bodily functions need work to sustain them. How then can one escape the bondage of work? By performing work as a sacrifice. Give up your attachments and work as though you are performing a sacrifice for the general good. That is the secret of work well done. Work should be done so that others may benefit by it and not you. Dedicate all the work to me and fight. Fix your mind on the eternal spirit. Detach your mind from all traces of desire and self. Then, when you do your duty, the sin or the benefit as the case may be, do neither of them cling to you, and you are free. Arjun said, I understand what you say. But Krishn, man is sometimes driven to commit sin, in spite of himself, in spite of his best intentions, against his better nature. He is almost driven to it. Why does it happen? Krishn said, I know what you mean. It is desire which prompts a man to commit sin. It is wrath which prompts man to commit sin. Consider these two as the direst enemies of man. True knowledge is hidden inside, and it is enveloped by these. A flame is enveloped by smoke, and a mirror is covered by dust. The unborn child is hidden in the womb. Even so, the soul inside you is not seen by you because of these obstructions. A breath of air is enough to clear the smoke hiding the flame. For a man of the sattvic type, a slight effort is enough to reveal the God in him. The mirror has to be wiped by a cloth, and it becomes clear. A slightly greater effort is needed by a man of the Rajasic type to realize the supreme. The child has to wait for months before it can free itself of the womb which holds it. Even so, it is harder for a man of the Tamasic type to free himself from the senses and realize the Brahman. Krishn then decided to let Arjun get a glimpse of the divinity that is himself. He deliberately said, I taught this yoga to Vivasvan. He spoke about it to Manu, and Manu told Ikshwaku. This has been handed down from generation to generation. It has been eclipsed in recent times, and now I am telling you the secret since you are my friend. You are dear to me. But Krishn, said Arjun, Vivasvan was so many eons of time before you were born. I do not understand how you could have taught him. Krishn smiled a little and said, I have passed through many births, and so have you. I know all of them, and you do not. I am the unborn and the eternal. I am the Lord of everything. When there is a dearth of righteousness in the world, when there is a danger of lawlessness becoming prevalent in the world, I appear, I incarnate myself. I am born yuga after yuga to protect the good, to destroy the wicked, to establish and propagate them. It is not given to everyone to know the divinity that is me. But the chosen few who know it will never be born again but will reach me. They will have no fear, no anger, no passion. They seek refuge in me, and they are lost in me. The fire of knowledge would have made them pure, and they become one with me. It is no matter in what manner they approach me, in what form they worship me. All paths lead to me, and I accept them. I will tell you more about the yoga of work. Any undertaking of man should be free from a desire for the fruits of it. He will then be always happy. He will always be working, and yet he is doing no work at all in the real sense of the word, since he does not attach any importance to the fruits of it. Knowledge of the divine reduces all work to ashes, and man is free of all bondage. A man prompted by selfless action, by knowledge, has all his doubts destroyed, and he becomes one with me. When you renounce the fruits of action to me, you attain a disciplined state of mind and you attain peace. But the other man, prompted by desire, who is not selfless, becomes attached to the fruits of his work, and he is bound, he gets involved in the world. A real yogi, a sannyasin, is one who does the work he ought to do, and does not seek the fruits thereof. Renunciation is selfless work. True renunciation is renunciation of desire and nothing else. Work is the only means to attain the yoga of renunciation. Once it is attained, serenity comes to the mind of its own accord. The pleasures that arise from attachment are only sources of pain. They have a beginning and end, and anything which has a beginning, and an end is never a source of eternal joy. A wise man should avoid them. When a man reaches the stage when cold and heat, pleasure and pain, honor and dishonor, seem alike, he is ever serene. A clod of earth, a stone and a piece of gold, will all look alike to him. He can see no difference between friends and foes, indifferent people, and impartial ones, hateful persons and even righteous persons. Such a man is supreme. Listen to me carefully, Arjun. I will tell you the secret of secrets. I have assumed the human form, and so fools do not recognize me as the Lord of all beings. I am the one, the distinct. Worshipping me will lead one to the supreme state, which is myself. I am the Father of this universe. I am the goal of all meditation and worship. Those who meditate on me and worship me, and only me, will reach me in the end. It is so very easy to win my grace. Anything you do, anything you eat, anything you give away, any sacrifice you perform, dedicate it all to me. You will then be free of the bondage of karma, from the good and evil fruits of your work. You will be free to come to me. Arjun said, "Tell me how I can know you by constant meditation. I want to know all about your power and your grandeur. I want to know where I should look for you. Where do you dwell?" Krishn said, "I am the soul dwelling in the heart of everything. I am the beginning, the middle and the end. Of the Adityas I am Vishnu. Of the lights I am the sun. Among the stars I am the moon. Of the Vedas I am the Sama. Of the senses I am the mind, and in the living beings I am the intellect. Of the Rudras I am Shankar. Of the mountains I am Meru. Of words I am the great Aum. Of the weapons I am the thunderbolt. Of those that measure I am time. I am death that destroys all, and I am the origin of things that are yet to be born. The germ of all living beings is myself. There is nothing moving or unmoving that can exist without me. Anything endowed with grandeur, with beauty, with strength, has sprung only from a spark of my splendor. I stand pervading the universe with a single fragment of me." Arjun said, "I desire to see your divine form. Lord of the yogis, if you think I am fit enough to behold it, reveal to me your form." Krishn granted him divine eyes and revealed to Arjun his divine form. Like the light of 1,000 suns, the splendor of the Mighty One was seen by Arjun. He beheld the entire universe with all its myriad manifestations, all gathered together in one. He bowed his head to the Lord. Pressing his palms together in incessant salutation, he said, "Lord of lords, in thy body I see all the gods and all the varied hosts of beings as well. I see Brahma and all the rishis. You are infinite in form. There is no beginning or middle or end. You are a glowing mass of light. You are the imperishable, the supreme that has to be realized. You are the home of this entire universe. You are the guardian of the eternal law. You are the primal being. Your eyes are the sun and moon, and your face is glowing with the radiance of fire, and this universe is being devoured by the fire that is you. By thee are filled the interspaces of heaven and earth and the sky. Looking on you, the world trembles, and so do I. I see all the sons of Dhritarashtra and all the many warriors, Bheeshm, Drona, Radhaya, and the great heroes on our side too, rushing into your fearful mouth. Like mountain rivers rushing in tumult into the great ocean, they are rushing into your mouth, which is all fire. They seem like a flight of moths that rush towards a burning flame, and they are perishing fast. Have mercy on me, tell me who you are. What is the purpose of this destruction that strikes terror into me?" Krishn said, "Can you not recognize me? I am Time, the great destroyer. I destroy the mighty world. I have begun to slay all these many heroes here. They will all die, every one of them. Arise now, Arjun, and win fame. These men have already been slain by me. You can be just the instrument with which I destroy them. Bheeshm, Drona, Radhaya, Jayadratha and others as well are doomed. You kill them and win the war." Arjun's voice was choking and his words came falteringly. He folded his palms together and said, Infinite Being, Lord of the Lords, Abode of the world, you are the imperishable, the being and what lies beyond. You are the first of the gods, the primal being. You are the supreme treasure of the world. You are the knower and you are what is to be known. You are the abode of everything. This entire universe is pervaded by thee. Infinite is your form, infinite your power, infinite your might. You pervade everything and you are everything. You are the Father of the world and all the other worlds. You are the object of worship and you are the greatest teacher. Nothing can equal you. Not in the three worlds. I prostrate before you and seek your mercy. Unaware of your greatness I called you as Krishn and friend. Forgive me my ignorance. Bear with me as a father with a son, as a friend with a friend, as a lover with his beloved. Please assume your former figure. I find I cannot bear to see this form of yours. The Lord abandoned his Vishvarup and became Krishn, the charioteer of Arjun once again. Arjun said, My mind has become serene only now, after seeing your old familiar form once again. Krishn said, This form of mine cannot be seen easily. I can be known only by devotion, incessant devotion to me. Arjun said, There are devotees who worship you and again, there are others who worship the Absolute. Which of these two is the better yogi? Krishn said, Both of them reach me. Some worship the Absolute, the imperishable. They have all their senses subdued. They are even-minded under all conditions. They are ever engaged in doing good to all beings. And they contemplate on the Absolute, and they come to me. Those who fix their minds on me, worship me with supreme faith, and steadfastly, are considered by me to be perfect yogis. It is a hard path which the worshipper of the Absolute treads. The goal is harder to reach. The other path is easy. When all actions are dedicated to me, when I am regarded as the dearest object of worship, when they meditate on me and worship me with single-hearted devotion, I save them soon from death and from the ocean called mortal life. Fix your mind on me alone and let your thoughts rest in me. Without a doubt you will live in me and me alone. Arjun said, I want to know the true nature of sannyasa and resignation. Tell me about them. Krishn said, The sages say that relinquishing of all works that are prompted by desire is renunciation. Surrendering the fruits of all works is called tyaga. Some say that all work should be abandoned as evil and others say that works of sacrifice, gifts and penance should not be given up. But I will tell you the real truth of the matter. Work of any kind should not be given up. Work has to be performed. But it should be done with surrender of all attachment for the fruits. This does not mean that one should renounce duty. It should be performed and only the fruits and attachment should be renounced. The doer who is free from attachment, who has no feeling of who is steady and zealous, who is unmoved by success or failure, whose mind is unattached everywhere, who has subdued his self and has no desires, is worthy of becoming one with God. Endowed with a clear vision, firmly restraining himself, turning away from the senses and the objects of the senses, casting aside likes and dislikes, dwelling in solitude, restraining his speech, body and mind, ever engaged in meditation and concentration, cultivating freedom from passion, casting aside conceit, violence, pride, desire, wrath and possession, and tranquil in mind, he becomes worthy of becoming one with God. Having become one with God and tranquil in spirit, he neither grieves nor desires. He regards all beings alike, and he is devoted to me. He may be always engaged in all kinds of work and yet, having found refuge in me, he reaches the eternal and indestructible by my grace. Fix your mind on me. Be devoted to me. Sacrifice to me. Prostrate yourself before me and you will come to me. I promise to you all this most solemnly, because you are dear to me. Surrender all duties and come to me alone for shelter. Have no grief. I will release you from all sins. I have declared to you the wisdom more secret than all secrets. Consider it fully. Review it in your mind and then act as you will. Arjun said, "My delusion is gone. I am no longer in doubt. I will act according to thy command." With a happy laugh, which lit up his face, Arjun took up his Gandiv. And the Lord took the reins of the white horses in his left hand, and the whip in his right hand. The golden chariot of Arjun began to move towards where Bhishm's silver chariot stood. 4. The beginning of the end. The war began. The first move was from the Kauravas. With Bhishma in the van, Duryodhan advanced towards the enemy army. The Pandavs with Yudhishthir sprang into action at once. The sight was terrible. The noise was deafening. Over and above the noise of the onslaught could be heard the roars of Bhim, who was as excited as a lion let loose. He rushed at the army of Duryodhan. The brothers of the king defended the army from the mad rush of Bhim. 12 of the sons of Dhritarashtra were opposing Bhim. They covered him with a shower of arrows. With their bows and arrows they defended their army from the wrath of Bhim. Seeing so many of them harass Bhim, there came to his help the sons of Draupadi, Abhimanyu, Nakul, Sahdev and the brave Yudhishthir. The fight between the two teams was fierce. All of them were excellent archers and good fighters. It was like two forests caught in a gale. All the people stood still and looked on this fight. The two armies fought furiously. When the sun reached the zenith, the fury had not abated. Bhishma advanced towards the enemy ranks, and he was met by Arjun. Arjun's bow did not have a moment's rest. Arrows flew faster than raindrops. Satyaki encountered Kritvarma. Abhimanyu met Brihadbala, the king of the Kosalas. Brihadbala cut the banner of Abhimanyu with his sharp arrows. Abhimanyu was furious. The two warriors were equally matched. Bhim met Duryodhan. They rained arrows on each other. Duryodhan met Nakul in single combat. Durmakha, a brother of Duryodhan, accosted Sahdev. Salya and Yudhishthir had a fight. Yudhishthir accosted the Acharya Drona. At the end of the afternoon fight, the Pandav army had lost many of its soldiers. Bhishma was literally plowing through their ranks. He had advanced quite far into the army of the Pandavs. 5 great heroes had been sent by the king to protect the foolhardy old man. They were Durmakha, Kritvarma, Kripa, Salya and Vivamsati. The banner of Bhishma could not be seen, so thick was the dust which rose up as his chariot rattled through the ranks. He was so very quick and alert, it looked as though he was just dancing. People paused and watched him as he stood in his chariot with his bow raised, raining arrows continually. Abhimanyu, with great fury, rushed against the old fighter. He met Bhishma and all his supporters single-handed. His arrows were sharper than cutting words. He hurt Salya, Kritvarma, and Bhishma with several arrows. His fighting was wonderful. The enemies were amazed at the prowess of this young child. He cut the banner of Bhishma. He was terrible like a god in anger. Several heroes of the Pandav army approached him to give him their support, Virat with his sons, Yudhishthir, Bhim, the brave Kakaya brothers and Satyaki. Uttarkumar, the young son of Virat, had quickly blossomed into a great fighter. The young boy who ran away from the chariot on looking at the Kaurav army, had now disappeared. In his place was a great hero who was ready to face Bhishma and Salya in single combat. He was seated on a huge elephant and he accosted Salya. He warded off the arrows of Salya with his own. He killed the horses of Salya. Salya was now very angry. He sent towards the heart of Uttara a terrible javelin. It went right into the heart of the young prince, piercing his armor. Uttarkumar fell on the neck of his elephant with his chest rent open. Looking at his younger brother dead, Swita, another son of Virat, rushed on Salya with every intention of killing him. He wanted to avenge the death of his brother. He saw Salya surrounded by 7 great warriors. But that did not deter him. He covered the enemy with a mantle of arrows. It looked as though Salya had been caught in the jaws of death. Bhishma came to his help. The old man found it very hard to withstand the attack of Sweta. Bheeshm's banner was cut, his horses were killed, and he was without a chariot. So terrible was the fighting of young Sweta. Finally, a sharp javelin was dispatched by Bheeshm. It pierced through the armor of Sweta, and the young prince of Virat fell down dead, killed in the first day's fighting. People did not know that the sun had set. He had reached the top of the western hill. They were so intent on the great fight. The sun had set. Both the commanders withdrew their troops. The first day's engagement was over. The Pandavs had lost heavily. It was a great day for the Kauravas. The chief losses on the side of the Pandavs were Uttara and Sweta, the sons of Virat. A huge slice of the army had been mowed down by their grandfather. The king Duryodhan was delirious with joy. He felt that, at the rate at which his grandfather was destroying the army of the enemies, the war should be over soon. Duryodhan was sure of his victory. Yudhishthir, on the other hand, was extremely depressed at the way things were going. Looking at the slaughter in his army, he was despondent. He approached Krishn and said, "Krishn, look at the devastation in the army. Bheeshm is indeed terrible. Pi looks like a tongue of flame licking up the forest which has been dried by the sun in summer. The great Kuru veteran is invincible. In a weak moment I agreed to fight this war. I realize my foolishness now. I will go back to the forest. I have no right to let all these be killed by Bheeshm because of my desire for the kingdom. Krishn, you have been watching the war since morning. Tell me what should be done." "Tomorrow. This beloved brother of mine, Bheem, is the only one among us who is fighting willingly. He has been causing havoc in the ranks of the enemies. But how long can he withstand the astras of Bheeshm and Drona? They will hurl their divine astras against my dear handsome Bheem. What can we do then? I am so depressed." Krishn tried to pacify the grieving Yudhishthir. He said, "Yudhishthir, please do not give way to this depression. We have so many great heroes with us. Why should you worry? I am here, and you have Satyaki, Drishtadhum, and so many other heroes. Shikhandi will certainly be the cause of the fall of the great Bheeshm." All the others pacified the king. Drishtadhum spoke words of encouragement to Yudhishthir. After some talk about the events of the day, they all went to their tents to snatch some rest before the sun dawned again on another day of bloody war. 5. The second day. The morning of the second day of the terrible war dawned. Yudhishthir said, "I think it will be sensible if we arrange our army in the Krunka formation." Arjun and Drishtadhum were busy arranging the troops. At the head of the army were placed Drupad and his army. The eye of the bird was Kunti-bhoja and the king of the Chetas. The neck was formed by the army of Satyaki. At the tail of the bird was stationed Yudhishthir. The wings were formed by Bheem with his army on one side, and by the commander and his army on the other. The sons of Drupadi and Satyaki were guarding these wings. The phalanx was formidable. Duryodhan saw the Ekrancha and approached his guru Drona and Kripa. He said, "They have arranged their army in this formidable formation. Still our army is more terrible. You are all great enough each to kill the sons of Pandus single-handed. I depend on you to see me safely through this great war." Drona assured him that they would put in their best possible effort. With the help of Drona, Bheeshm began to arrange his army. He too decided on the Krunkavaya. Purusravas and Salya were guarding the wing on the left while the right was in the immediate care of Somdat and the king of Kamboha. Ashvathama, Kripa and Kritvarma were stationed near the tail of the bird. The battle drums brayed once again. The conchs were blown once again. The fight began suddenly as it did the previous day. The fighting today was more intense and more cruel than it was on the first day. Blood flowed in rivulets all over the field. Bodies of dead men and horses and elephants were scattered all over the place. Hawks and crows were circling the field, waiting for the evening to approach. Bheeshm was found fighting with Bheem, Abhimanyu. Satyaki, the Kakaya brothers, Virat and with Drishtadhum. All of them together were not able to stop the advance of Bheeshm. He was coming like a hurricane, leaving behind him utter devastation. The army was falling as fast as his arrows. Arjun watched this from a distance. He told Krishn, "Our grandfather is spitting wrath today. Our army is suffering. Take me to his presence quickly." Bheeshm is being supported by Drona, Kripa, Salya, Vikarna, and the other brothers of the king. They are in turn being harassed by Drupad. "I must kill Bheeshm if our army is to be saved." Krishn said, "You are right. The sooner you meet Bheeshm, the better it will be for your soldiers." Krishn steered the chariot of Arjun quickly towards the place where Bheeshm was stationed. The fight was splendid to watch. If it had not been for the fact that they were losing so many of their soldiers, Arjun would have spent hours watching the dexterity with which the old man was handling his bow. The grand man was death himself. Arjun came face to face with Bheeshm. There were only 3 people in the entire Kaurav army who could face Arjun. They were Bheeshm, Drona, and Radhaya. Bheeshm began to discharge his arrows. With him came Drona to fight Arjun. Drona was joined by Duryodhan and Jayadratha. Vikarna was also there. Arjun withstood the attack from all of them. He hurt Bheeshm and Drona with his arrows. Arjun was seen from a distance by Satyaki. He rushed to Arjun's help. With him came Virat, Drishtadhum, the sons of Drupadi and Abhimanyu. The sons of Drupadi diverted the attention of Drona by their arrows. Bheeshm hurt Arjun. Arjun's bow was bent almost to a circle, so fast were the arrows flying out of it. Each looked like a serpent spitting poison. He was killing the men in the Kaurav army systematically and very quickly. The sight struck terror into the heart of Duryodhan. He approached Bheeshm and said, "This combination of Krishn and Arjun is terrible. You are not doing your best to kill him. When you are here, and when Drona is looking on, this should not happen. It is obvious that you are both too soft with Arjun. He is your favorite. I wish I had my Radhaya on the field. Because of your insulting words, he has sworn that he will not fight as long as you are on the field. I hope you will do something to check Arjun and his fury." Bheeshm was disgusted with the cruel words of Duryodhan. He cursed himself for having been born a Kshatriya. He advanced with fury towards Arjun. Both the heroes had white horses. The meeting was thrilling. Several people rushed to Bheeshm to be his protectors. Arjun was also surrounded by his brothers and others. Bheeshm hurt Krishn in the chest with a terrible arrow. Arjun killed the charioteer of his grandfather. The fighting stopped in several places on the field. Everyone stood still, watching this duel between Bheeshm and Arjun. Each was as powerful as the other. There was no chance of either withdrawing. It was a grand sight. Arjun had destroyed a huge portion of the Kaurav army. The sight was making Duryodhan very angry. On the other side of the field there was a great fight between Drona and Drupad. The old enemies were giving vent to their ire against each other. Drishtadhum came to assist his father. Drona hurled a javelin against Drishtadhum. It looked as fearful as the weapon of death himself. Drishtadhum, however, amazed the onlookers by checking the weapon with his arrows. He hurled a javelin which made Drona fall down under the impact. But he got up and slaved off the weapons of Drishtadhum. Bheem came to the help of his friend. Duryodhan saw the condition of Drona. He sent the king of Kalinga with his army for the protection of the Acharya. Virat and Drupad were fighting with Drona, and the Kalinga king was met by Bheem. Kechiman came to help Kalinga. Kalinga's son, named Sakradeva, came to help his father. Bheem was harassed on all sides by these men. But he did not even notice it. After a furious fight, Bheem killed Sakradeva. The father saw his son being killed. He was wild with anger and sorrow. He fought furiously. Hanuman came to his help. Bheem killed Hanuman. Bheem fought like a mad elephant. He rushed into the ranks of the enemies like a wild elephant and devastated the army. He frightened everyone with his wild looks and his terrible war cry. The kings Satya and Satyadeva, who were protecting Kalinga on either side of his chariot, were killed by Bheem. Kalinga was hurt, and he fainted away in his chariot, which was led away. Shikhandi and a portion of the army came to help Bheem. Drishthadhum rushed to the side of Bheem. His favorites were Bheem and Satyaki. He could not let anything happen to Bheem. In a moment Satyaki arrived on the scene. The great trio fought with the Kalinga army. Bheeshm heard the great upheaval in the army because of the havoc caused by these three. He hurried to the spot and accosted them. The three fought very well. Bheem was standing just in front of Bheeshm. The old man sent a huge big javelin towards the chariot of Bheem. Before it reached him, Bheem jumped out of his chariot. He broke the javelin into 3 pieces. Satyaki killed the charioteer of Bheeshm with his arrows. With his charioteer killed, Bheeshm had to turn away from the fight. There was great joy in the hearts of the three at this retreat of Bheeshm. The army of Kalinga had been routed already. They embraced each other in glee. The Kalinga king had also been killed. Satyaki jumped from his chariot and went to Bheem. He said, "You have today killed Kalinga, his son Ketuman, Satya, Satyajit, and the entire army of these, and also Hanuman. Great is your achievement." He embraced him warmly. It was midday. Ashvathama accosted the sons of Drupad. Abhimanyu came to their help. Kripa and Drona came to help Ashvathama. Abhimanyu was challenged by Lakshman, the son of the king. The fight was very beautiful to watch. The 2 children were as powerful as their fathers. Duryodhan saw his son being harassed by Abhimanyu. He rushed to his help. Several warriors surrounded the son of Arjun. But he was undaunted. Bheeshm and Drona went again to Arjun, and there was another glorious combat. But none could fight the great Arjun. He was wonderful. Bheeshm spoke to Drona, "My dear Acharya, Arjun is impossible today. It is not possible to fight with him. He has already destroyed a large portion of the army. He looks like Shankar himself with the trident in his hand. I cannot fight with him. The great Kaurav army is dwindling by his efforts. The army is now frightened. It is almost time for the sun to set. Let the army now withdraw. It is not possible to continue the fight with nervous soldiers. They will fight better tomorrow. Let us retire." The sun had set. All the troops went back to their tents. There was great joy in the Pandav camp today. Sakradeva, Hanuman, Ketuman, Satyadeva, Satya, the king of the Kalinas, and almost the entire Kalinga army had been destroyed, and all by Bheem. Bheem was the hero of the day. Drishthadhum and Satyaki praised him again and again. The talk then veered round to the grand duels fought by Arjun. Yudhishthir was very happy. He listened to all their talks with a smile on his lips. The Kauravas were, of course, very depressed today. Contrary to his certainty, Duryodhan realized that the war was not going to end in a day. He had been sure that the Pandavs would be killed during the first day's war, and if they managed to come out of it alive, they would not see the sunset on the second day. But his hopes were just hopes. He was just beginning to realize that it was not easy to defy the Pandavs. He had 11 Akshohinis and the Pandavs had 7. He had thought that his army was unlimited while theirs was limited. He had Bheeshm, Drona and so many other heroes, and yet it looked as though the Pandavs could not be defeated. He cursed Bheem and his brother Arjun. There seemed to be some truth in the words of his grandfather and his guru and his uncle Vidur, that it was not possible to defeat Arjun. 6. Krishn's anger. Early next morning Bhishma arranged his army in the shape of Garuda, the sacred eagle. The beak was Bhishma. The eyes were Drona and Kritvarma. Ashvathama and Kripa made up the head of the bird. The Trigardas and Jayadratha with their armies formed the neck. The king was behind them at the heart of the bird with his brothers Anvinda and Anuvinda, the Avanti brothers. The tail was formed by a huge army under the control of Brihadbala, the king of Kosala. Arjun saw the phalanx arranged by his grandfather, and in consultation with the commander Drishtadhum, he arranged the Pandav army in the shape of a crescent. On the right side of the crescent, the horn, was stationed Bhim. Along the lip were placed in increasing thickness Drupad and Virat with their armies. Then came Nila and, after him, Drishtakata. Drishtadhum and his brother Shikhandi came next. At the center of the crescent was Yudhishthir with his army of elephants. The narrowing crescent proceeded to the left. Satyaki and the 5 sons of Draupadi were there, then came Abhimanyu and his stepbrother Iravan. Then came Ghatoat-kuch and then the Kakayas. At the left tip was stationed the chariot of Arjun with Krishn holding the reins of the white horses. The Kaurav army, refreshed by sleep, was looking forward to the battle. In a few moments the fight began. The general fight went on furiously. Bhishma was today supported by Drona, Jayadratha, Purumithra, Vikarna, and the wily Shakuni. They were faced by Bhim, Satyaki, Ghatoat-kuch, and the sons of Draupadi. The sun could not be seen because of the dust which had risen in the battlefield. Duryodhan accosted Ghatoat-kuch with 100 chariots to help him. Bhishma was in form. He was killing as though he was in a frenzy of destruction. Arjun saw it and advanced towards Bhishma. He faced a great opposition. The infuriated Kauravas fought very well. Abhimanyu and Satyaki fought with Shakuni and his attendants. The chariot of Satyaki was destroyed by Shakuni. He jumped into Abhimanyu's chariot and continued to fight. Bhishma and Drona now proceeded against the elephant army of Yudhishthir. The sons of Mahadri were there to help Yudhishthir. The fight went on in several parts of the field. The prowess of Ghatoat-kuch was seen only today. He was greater than even his father in fighting. He very easily destroyed the great army of Duryodhan. There was a fight between the two. Bhim came now to fight with Duryodhan, his dearest enemy. Duryodhan was hurt by the onslaught of Bhim, and he fainted in his chariot. His charioteer took him away quietly from the fighting area. Drona and Bhishma began to harass Bhim. Satyaki had come to assist Bhim. Duryodhan had recovered from the faint, and he came back to the front. He saw the havoc caused in his army by Bhim and Satyaki. He was terrified by the sight of his army dwindling down at an alarmingly fast rate. He rushed to the side of Bhishma and said, "It is not right that this should happen when you are here. Drona and his son Ashvathama are alive and still this is happening to my army. The Pandavs, surely, are not powerful enough to defy all of you. It is not difficult for me to guess the reason for this. The sons of Pandu are your favorites. You like them immensely. You are all partial to the Pandavs. That is why you are allowing this wild killing of our soldiers. Drona is just like you. You do not like to fight with the Pandavs. If you had told me even at the beginning of the war that you did not like to fight, I would not have asked you to be the commander of my army. If you have thoughts of abandoning me, both of you can tell me so. I will ask Radhaya to fight. If you have any affection for me, both of you must fight to the best of your abilities and destroy my enemies." Bhishma heard the words of Duryodhan, which were so much sharper than his own arrows. He laughed at the king and said, "My child, for the last so many days, years, I have been telling you that the Pandavs are invincible, that Indra himself cannot withstand their attack. But you would not listen. It is because we love you that we have agreed to fight on your side. I am trying my best. I am an old man and I am trying to behave like a young man and fight with the terrible Pandavs. See me fight. I am going to kill the enemy army as I have not done till now. Bheeshm, like an elephant which had been most cruelly prodded by the Mahabharat, rushed against the army of the Pandavs with renewed energy. He blew his conch, and the noise warned the Pandavs that the old man was very angry. It was midday. The Pandavs had so far been very happy since they had been winning easily. They were now rudely shaken out of their complacency. Bheeshm's bow was singing, so constant was the twang of its string. The river of blood began to flow in torrents now. The Kuru veteran was plowing through the ranks, and flood flowed in his wake. No one could come near him. He fought like one possessed. He was all over the field. Arjun saw him in the east, and the next moment he was in the west. It looked as though he had taken the center of the stage for himself, and had no intention of leaving it. The army was being slaughtered fast. Not one on the Pandav side was able to stand up to him. Krishn saw the state of affairs and spoke to Arjun, "Arjun, I can see that the time has come when you will have to justify your words. In the midst of kings you said that you would destroy the Kaurav army led by Bheeshm, Drona, and all the others. You said that you could destroy every one of them. Make these words of yours come true. It is not right that you should allow this weakness to come over your heart. You are thinking only of the fact that Bheeshm is your grandfather. But take a look at our army. Look how it is being destroyed by him. Have you no pity for them? The army is melting like snow at the touch of the Sunday." Arjun was impressed by the words of Krishn. He said, "Take me to him, Krishn. I will fight with him." Everyone was happy to see the chariot of Arjun proceeding towards Bheeshm. The combat began. The banner of Bheeshm was felled at one stroke by Arjun. His quick and active fighting was greatly appreciated by the old man. He saw how beautiful Arjun looked with his bow always bent, and with the arrows pouring out of it. Bheeshm said, "Well done, Arjun. Only you can do this magnificent deed. I am immensely pleased with you. Come, let us continue the fight." The fight went on. Krishn saw the terrible wrath of Bheeshm. He also saw that Arjun was deliberately soft in hitting Bheeshm. He could see that the Pandav army had absolutely no chance unless the old man was stopped in his track. Krishn told himself, "My friend Arjun is not able to forget that he is fighting with his dear old grandfather. I think I will have to forget the oath that I will not fight in this war. I will kill this man for the sake of the Pandavs. I must lift the burden off the shoulders of Yudhishthir. Arjun has forgotten his duty in spite of my telling him often. I must do something about this." Even as he was thinking thus, Bheeshm sent arrows which hurt Krishn. Bheeshm was supported by Drona, Vikarna, Jayadratha, Purusravas and several others. All of them attacked Arjun. They had every intention of killing him. So fierce was their fighting. Satyaki was alarmed at the condition of Arjun. He rushed up to his help. The others stood by and watched helplessly. They were not able to meet Bheeshm. The army of Yudhishthir rushed to help Arjun. Even Satyaki was able to notice the gentle fighting of Arjun. Krishn could not bear it any more. He saw Satyaki and he was pleased with his valor and his courage. He looked at Satyaki and said, "Watch me, Satyaki. Watch me kill this terrible old man Bheeshm and his friend Drona. I find that I have to take a hand in this fighting and kill them. I must please Yudhishthir and Bheem and the twins. Arjun is letting us down very badly. I have sworn to make Yudhishthir king of the world. If I do not kill these men now, my promise will go. I have promised to Draupadi that the blood of these sinners will stain the earth. I must make her happy. I have to punish these men for their sins." The great Krishn forgot his human form. He thought of his divine form. He was now the great destroyer Narayan. He thought of his chakra called Sudarshan. Even as he thought of it, he found it in his hand. With the chakra in his hand, the great Narayan shone like the god of death. He jumped from the chariot. Brandishing the chakra in his right hand he came, and stood before Bheeshm. He looked like an angry lion, standing before a wild mad elephant. With his brow glowing with anger, the great Krishn was seen by everyone. All the knowing ones thought that the end of the world had come. Seeing him in front of his chariot, Bheeshm said, "I bow down to you, Lord of Lords. I have been honored by this your appearance. Please grant me release from this human bondage. Please kill me. There will be no glory greater than death at your hands. I will have the greatest honor bestowed upon me if you kill me now. Can you not see that I want to die? That I have been wanting to die, all these so many years. I want death. I want to go away from here. I am sick of life. I cannot die. Please kill me and grant me the freedom which has been denied to me because of the curse of Satyavati. Please kill me now." The great Bheeshm spoke thus to Krishn and prepared himself to fight. Seeing that Krishn was ready to fight, Arjun jumped down from his chariot. He rushed to Krishn's side. He caught hold of his right hand. Krishn was wild with anger. He tried to shake off the restraining hand of Arjun. But in desperation Arjun clung to his right arm. He fell at the feet of Krishn. His heart was beating fast. His eyes were blinded by his tears. He would not let Krishn take one step forward. He said, "No. You must not be angry. You must not do this. You must forgive me." Krishn was slightly mollified. He paused and looked at Arjun. Looking at his angry eyes, Arjun said, "Krishn, please take back your anger. You must not break your oath. You have sworn not to fight. In your anger against me you must not do this. I swear on the name of my child that I will fight the Kauravas as I promised. I will fight with my full fury against Bheeshm. You must not be false to your words." Seeing the state of Arjun, Krishn was pacified. He calmly got into his chariot and took up the reins of the horses in his beautiful left hand. The smile which would always be on his lips was not there. Krishn took up his Panchajanya and blew it lustily. Arjun blew his Devdutta, and the four quarters resounded with the noise. Bheeshm, accompanied by Purushravas, advanced like a shooting star raining fire. The fighting of Arjun was terrible. He withstood all the arrows of the great Kauravas. The Kaurav army was being destroyed by the sharp arrows of Arjun. He began to send his divine missiles against Bheeshm. It was now Arjun's turn to be terrible. He sent the astra called Indra, and he destroyed a large portion of the army. Bheeshm, Drona, and Balika saw the ruin in their army caused by Arjun. They saw the west red with the rays of the setting sun. They decided that the armies should be withdrawn. The third day's fighting was over. The Kaurav monarch was desperate. He saw today the terrible form of Arjun in action. He was afraid that the words of his elders might prove to be true. Arjun seemed to be invincible. 7. Duryodhan's despair. The fourth day of the war dawned. Bheeshm was determined to do his best and destroy half the army of the enemies. Drona and the king with several others had accompanied him to the front of the army. Bheeshm first advanced towards Arjun. From a distance Arjun saw him coming and met him halfway. Drona and his followers met the oncoming chariot of Arjun. Abhimanyu went to meet this team. He fought with Drona, Kripa, Salya, Vivimsati, Somdat and the king. There was no difference between Abhimanyu and his father. He was wonderful with his bow and arrow. People were amazed to see so much prowess in so young a person. Bheeshm left him and went in search of Arjun. The combat was worth watching. In the meantime Abhimanyu was assaulted by a new set of men, Ashvathama, Purushravas, Salya, Chitrasena, and the son of Sala. Arjun saw from a distance the fighting of his son and cheered him from there. Drishtadhum saw the unequal fight between Abhimanyu and the others. He came to the help of the young man. The trig artist came to Arjun. Suasharma and his son were fighting. Drishtadhum joined Arjun and the fight went on. The Trigardas were joined by Kripa, Kritvarma and Salya. The son of Sala came to join the fight. Drishtadhum was very angry at this onslaught. He fought furiously. The son of Sala and Salya were fighting very well. But the commander of the Pandav army was too strong for them. With his powerful mace he split the head of Sala's son. There was great commotion in the army at the sight of this killing. Sala was furious with Drishtadhum. He leaped at him and fought for all he was worth. Now Salya joined the fight. A wonderful duel was fought between Salya and Drishtadhum. Abhimanyu came to the help of their commander. Now came several brothers of the king. Bhim was watching. He saw that the warriors were unequally matched. He rushed to the spot. Duryodhan also had come to the front. Bhim was very happy to see so many of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Nakul and Sahdev were there too. The fight went on for a long time. Duryodhan fought as one inspired. Looking at Duryodhan, Bhim thought that he would kill him and raised his mace. The brothers of the king were terrified at the sight of Bhim. Duryodhan sent the king of the Magadhs to accost Bhim with his army. The sons of Draupadi joined in the fight. The king of the Magadhs advanced towards Abhimanyu with his huge elephant. Abhimanyu killed the elephant. Bhim was just dancing on the field like a lion in the midst of elephants. The elephant army of Magadha was being destroyed at a fast pace by Bhim. He was surrounded by the immense bodies of the elephants and the many warriors. He was looking like Shankar dancing his death dance in the burning ground. A further portion of the army was sent by Duryodhan to defy Bhim, who was not in the least affected by the size of the army. Bhim stood like Mount Meru surrounded by masses of rain clouds. Drishtadhum was assisting Bhim. The sons of Draupadi and Shikhandi were there. Suddenly Bhim found himself facing Bheeshm. He went on fighting. But Satyaki was concerned about him and rushed to his help. A Rakshas named Alambusa joined the warring princes. He was a good friend of Duryodhan. But Satyaki defied him effortlessly. Bhim's anger was now at its height. He raised his mace and rushed towards the sons of Dhritarashtra. He rushed on them like a wolf on a herd of cows. With a sharp hit he killed one brother of Duryodhan. He spoke to himself, 99 more. He killed some more of them one after the other. 8 of the brothers of Duryodhan were killed within a few moments. Bheeshm saw the havoc caused by Bhim. He said, Bhim's anger has reached its height. Something must be done before he kills more of them. He sent the great Bhagavad. Bhagavad, with his great elephant, came towards Bhim and began to fight with him. It was a magnificent elephant. It attacked all the heroes. The earth trembled under its tread. Seated on the immense elephant, the king of the city of Pragjyotish hurled a terrible javelin at Bhim. Bhim fainted at the impact of the javelin on his immense chest. It was like a shaft of lightning. Ghatoat-kuch saw that his father had fainted. He rushed at once to the spot. He used his Maya tactics to fight with the enemy. He rode on an elephant and marched against Bhagavad. It was not possible for Bhagavad to cope up with Ghatoat-kuch. Bheeshm saw the condition of Bhagavad. He spoke to Drona and Duryodhan. Bhagavad seems to be finding it difficult to withstand the son of Bhim. Ghatoat-kuch is an easily excitable person. His anger has been roused because his father was made to faint. He is a Rakshas and, as for our Bhagavad, his temper is phenomenal. It is not right to let them continue the fight. Let us proceed to their neighborhood. Bhim has joined the fight now. Father and son will be terrible to oppose. The army there will be destroyed completely. Let us hasten to the rescue of Bhagavad. Hearing these words of concern spoken by the commander, many warriors rushed to the spot where Bhim and Ghatoat-kuch were holding the ground. Several of the heroes on the side of the Pandavs went to the help of Bhim and his son. The impact of the two armies was dreadful. It was a noise which threatened to rend the sky. Ghatoat-kuch was in excellent form. He was literally wiping out the enemy army. Bheeshm spoke once again. He said, "I do not think it is advisable to fight with the son of Bheem now. He has now got many supporters too. Not Indra, nor even the Rudras, will be able to oppose him at this stage. Our army has got to be saved from his fury. The sun is about to set. My horses are extremely tired, and I am tired too. Let us stop the fight now. Now that it is evening, the strength of Ghatoat-kuch will increase at an alarming rate. We will withdraw our army. We will fight tomorrow." The Kaurav army was withdrawn according to the wishes of the commander. The Pandavs saw that the army of the Kauravas had retired earlier than usual. They knew that it was the fear for Ghatoat-kuch that made them retire like that. They were very happy at the way things had progressed that day. Blowing their conchs and trumpets, they retired to their camps. Ghatoat-kuch was embraced with affection by Yudhishthir. It was clear that he was the hero of the day. The Kauravas retired to their camp. Everyone was tired. Each man slept the sleep of exhaustion. But not Duryodhan. He sat alone in his tent. With his head resting on his palm, he sat for hours. Tears were flowing unrestrained from his red eyes. He had lost his brothers, 8 of them. His sorrow was great. It looked as though Bheem would keep his promise and kill all his unfortunate brothers. He thought of the picture of the coming death of Duryodhan. It had been painted vividly by Krishn and Bheem. His frame shuddered to think of it. But he brushed away the thought and stood up. He told himself that he was not going to allow it. He would stop it somehow. Listlessly he prepared himself to rest. To rest but not sleep. He was too upset to sleep. Suddenly he got up from the bed. He walked to the tent of his grandfather. He sat by his side and said, "Grandfather, I am unhappy. 8 of my brothers have been killed by Bheem. You, Drona, Ashvathama, Kripa, Kritvarma, Bhurisravas, Bhagadat and Vikarna were all there. Could you not have prevented the death of my brothers? Each one of you is able to defy the gods in war. Why then could you not do this for me? This strength of the Pandavs is something I cannot understand. How is it that they are able to stand against you all? How are they able to win every day? Please tell me that." Bheeshm smiled gently. He said, "My child, Duryodhan, this is what I have been trying to tell you all these days. Even now I am telling you. Make it up with Yudhishthir. Live with the rest of your brothers. Do not let this terrible war continue. I have been trying to tell you that it is not possible to defeat the Pandavs. You want to know by what power they are able to withstand me and Drona. I will tell you. They have Krishn with them. That is the reason why they are invincible. Krishn is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, and he has been born in the world for the destruction of evil. The greatest of the great walks the earth of ordinary men by the name of Krishn. The Pandavs are men who have not swerved from the path of Dharma even by a hair's breadth. Krishn has therefore become their friend. He has taken upon himself the task of saving the 5 Pandavs, and with his help they are destroying evil in the world. This earth will have a bloodletting of all the proud arrogant kings, and will be the purer for it. The Pandavs are invincible. Please do not entertain the slightest doubt about it. So long as Krishna is with them, no one can hurt them. I ask you to consider their strength once again. Stop this war. For days of fighting have shown you how it is all going to end." Duryodhan listened to the words of his grandfather. He got up and walked away quietly to his tent with his head downcast. Bheeshm sat for a long time. He was feeling sorry for this grandson of his. But he knew that Duryodhan would win or die. He was the last person to think of any compromise, especially in the middle of the fight. He was jealous of his reputation. He could not bear to be called a coward. He would walk to his death even if he were convinced that he should not have fought with the Pandavs. With a tearful sigh the old man lay down. He could not sleep either. His mind was crowded with many thoughts. He saw again, in his mind, the beautiful way in which Arjun fought with him. He then thought of the valor of Abhimanyu, the child. A tender smile lit up the face of Bheeshm. He saw again, Krishn with the chakra in his hand. It would have been so wonderful if he had killed him. He would have got his release earlier than he thought. But that could not be. His mother Satyavati had told him that he had no right to die until the Kuru house had been established firmly on the ancient throne of the Pauravas. That meant that he had to live and see the death of everyone. Until Yudhishthir was installed as the monarch on the Paurava throne, he had no right to die. He had to live. With another sigh Bheeshm turned over in his bed, as if to turn his back on all thoughts worrying him. He decided to do his best to hasten the end of the world. Everyone had to die. He had to watch the death of everyone. The thoughts of Ganga came to his mind. He felt a child again. He thought of the days when she would sit by his side telling him stories until he went to sleep. Bheeshm thought of his days of childhood, and sleep came to his tired eyes. He slept a long dreamless sleep. 8. The 5th and 6th days. The 5th day of the war dawned. The sun had just appeared as a red rim over the edge of the eastern horizon. Bheeshm began to arrange his army in the Makaravaya. Arjun, Drishtadhum and Yudhishthir thought that their army should be in the form of a hawk. Bheem was the beak of the bird. Shikhandi and Drishtadhum were the eyes of the hawk. The head was Satyaki and Arjun was the neck of the bird. The left wing was formed by Drupad and Virat, and the right was formed by the Kakaya brothers. The back of the bird was formed by Abhimanyu and the sons of Draupadi. The tail was the eldest Pandav Yudhishthir accompanied by Nakul and Sahdev. Bheem entered the great tortoise-shaped army of the Kauravas. Bheem met Bheeshm at the outset. Bheeshm had begun his destruction already. Arjun hurried to his presence. Only he could counteract the divine astras of Bheeshm. Duryodhan went to Drona. He thought of the death of his brothers the previous day. He said, "You are my well-wisher. I am depending on you and my grandfather to help me. You are able to defy the gods and fight. After all, the power of the Pandavs is far inferior to yours." Drona sighed with anger. He said, "You are foolish to expect the defeat of the Pandavs. Even now you cannot realize that they are invincible. We will try our best to do our duty, more than that is not possible." Drona did not wait to hear the reply of Duryodhan. He rode towards the army of the Pandavs. Satyaki was there to meet his onslaught. It was a glorious duel which was fought between the two. Bheem came to help Satyaki. The team was getting strengthened on either side. Drona, Bheeshm and Salya were now facing Bheem, Satyaki, Abhimanyu and the sons of Drupad. The fight now threatened to become a duel between Shikhandi and Bheeshm. Drona remembered the words of Duryodhan at the beginning of the war, that all of them should protect Bheeshm from Shikhandi. He therefore challenged Shikhandi. Already Bheeshm had turned away from the presence of Shikhandi since he was a woman reborn as a man. All the Pandavs now harassed the old man. The team was led by Arjun. Bheeshm was eager to save the sons of Dhritarashtra from the wrath of Bheem. Hence he fought with him himself. The day had now reached its middle. The sun burned down on them from the zenith. The war had taken its toll of thousands of warriors. The battlefield was slippery with the mire of blood and the dead bodies of men and horses and elephants. Arjun rushed at Bheeshm. Hearing the music of the conchs of Krishn and Arjun, the army was struck with terror. All the heroes on the side of Duryodhan rallied round the banner of Bheeshm. There was a great fight between the two armies. Virat hurt Bheeshm with sharp arrows. The great man turned his angry eyes on Virat and fought back furiously. The powerful Ashvathama fought with Arjun. It was thrilling to see the fight between the two favorites of Drona. One was the son and the other was almost a son. So dear was Arjun to the Acharya. Arjun praised the prowess of Ashvathama, and during the fight he managed to go elsewhere. He did not enjoy this fight with the son of his guru. He saw Duryodhan fighting with Bheem. He passed them. Bheem had hurt Duryodhan with his sharp arrows. But the king fought on, not minding the pain in the chest. Abhimanyu was cutting away the army as a sickle cuts a field ripe with corn. He was killing them by thousands and hundreds. No one could stop the advance of the young lion. Lakshman, the son of Duryodhan, defied him for a while. But he was wounded by Abhimanyu, and Kripa carried him away from the field. Satyaki was in excellent form. Everyone could see that he was a student of Arjun. The same lightness of touch was there. The same quickness was found. Everyone was watching the grace with which Satyaki fought. Satyaki fought a grand duel with his old enemy Purusravas. The fight went on for a long time. They fought like infuriated lions. Bheem was looking on from a distance. When he thought that the fight had made both of them tired, he came and took Satyaki in his own chariot. The duel between Bheeshm and Arjun still went on. It was not possible for either to make the other retreat. The sun had set. Bheeshm saw that the faces of all the men were pale and haggard. It was a very tiring day. He withdrew from the field with his men. The coming of the night was welcome to all the men. They were exhausted physically and mentally. Arjun was very unhappy because he had to fight with his grandfather. He hated to wound his Acharya with his arrows. How he hated the war and Duryodhan, who was the cause of it. The sixth day of the war dawned. The Pandavs had arranged their army in the Makara formation. The countervia of the Kauravas was the Krunka. The war began as intensely as on the previous day. The first encounter was between Bheem and Drona. Bheem first killed the charioteer of Drona. Drona took the reins in his own hands and continued to fight. He began to destroy the Pandav army. Bheeshm and Drona were intent on only one thing, the destruction of the army. They could not make up their minds to kill any of the Pandavs. They fought with them, but they would not try and hurt them fatally. Bheem was returning their attack. The army of Duryodhan was suffering terrible loss because of the prowess of Arjun and Abhimanyu, and the sons of Draupadi on one side and Bheem, Drishtadhum and Satyaki on the other. Arjun was supported by Nakul and Sahdev. The brothers of Duryodhan tried to arrest the progress of Bheem. They could do nothing. As soon as Bheem entered the via, the people cried, "Here comes the terrible Bheem. Let us take leave of our lives. We are going to be killed any moment now." Bheem was first going in his chariot. He felt that the progress of the chariot was not fast enough. He jumped from it and took up his mace in his hand. He entered the army like a storm cloud entering a clear sky. Destruction followed in his wake. Drishtadhum wanted to help Bheem. He entered the field and there he saw Vaizoka, the charioteer of Bheem, sitting desolately in the empty chariot. He could not see Bheem. He feared the worst. He asked Vaizoka, "Where is Bheem? He is dearer to me than my very life. Where is he?" Vaizoka told him about the decision of Bheem to enter the army with the mace in his hand. Drishtadhum was worried about his friend and the rashness with which he had gone into the heart of the army. He hurried to his help. He spoke to himself, "There is no use in my living if anything happens to Bheem. He must not die. If I return to the camp without Bheem, how can I face the others? I would rather spend all my days in hell than live without Bheem. He is my friend. The powerful Bheem is my guru, and I am his devotee. I must hurry to the place where Bheem is and help him if he is alive. If he is dead, then I will kill the man who has killed him, and then I will die. I will not return to the camp without Bheem. With these thoughts in his mind, Drishthadhum went into the heart of the enemy army. The path of Bheem could be seen by the bodies of the dead, which had been felled just then. Blood had not stopped flowing from the wounds of the dead. Drishthadhum saw his hero in action. Like a gale uprooting trees, he was playing havoc there. Bheem saw his friend. The two enjoyed themselves wading through the river of blood which they had caused to flow. Duryodhan saw that Drishthadhum had joined Bheeshm. He said, "The awful son of Drupad has now joined Bheem. They will now destroy everything if we do not do some quick thinking." He sent some of his brothers to oppose the two. In the meantime, Drona and Drupad had met in single combat. Drupad was not powerful enough to defy the great Drona. Drona was returning from the combat. Drishthadhum had, just then, sent an astra called Pramohana, which had the power of making everyone lose consciousness. Drona saw the brothers of Duryodhan caught in the spell of the astra. He sent the counter astra and woke them up. They began to fight again with Bheem and Drishthadhum. Abhimanyu was sent with a big army to help Bheem and Drishthadhum. There were others who accompanied Abhimanyu, and they all entered the enemy army. They formed a new via called Sachimukha, meaning the point of a needle, and advanced to the neighborhood of Bheem. Drishthadhum turned his attention to Drona. His chariot was made useless by Drona. He had killed his horses. He jumped into the chariot of Abhimanyu and continued the fight. Bheem came back to his chariot and continued to fight with the brothers of the king. They fought for a long time, but finally they had to retreat. Abhimanyu and Vikarna fought a duel which was wonderful to watch. Each was as strong as the other. No one could decide who was the better fighter. Duryodhan and Bheem met once again. Bheem decided to kill Duryodhan. So intense was his hatred that he would not stop even when help came to Duryodhan. The fight went on for some time. At last, not being able to withstand the fury of Bheem, Duryodhan fainted away. Jayadratha carried him away in his chariot. Kripa helped Jayadratha to take away the king from the field of battle. Bheem fought with Jayadratha. Several men came to the help of both, and the fight became general once again. Evening came on slowly. The sun had set. The armies were withdrawn. Yudhishthir's camp resounded with the cheers of everyone. Bheem and Drishthadhum were the heroes of the day. Everyone was happy to know that the destruction in the Kaurav army was because of these two. The 6th day's war was over. Excepting the first day, the camp of the Pandavs was resounding with the music of conchs and trumpets and drums every day, announcing their joy. As usual, Duryodhan went to the tent of his grandfather and spoke about the grief in his heart. He said, "The Pandavs are happy. They have destroyed such a large portion of my army. Bheem managed to enter our impenetrable via even at the early part of the day. He and Drishthadhum have caused so much damage that I am feeling desperate. You must destroy the Pandavs at once. They must be killed. I will not have peace otherwise." Bheeshm said, "It is not right that you should speak thus. I have been doing my best to please you. I am trying to win this war for you. When their army is destroyed, they will be defeated. But there are great heroes on the side of the Pandavs. It is not easy to stop them from killing our soldiers. I am gambling with my life and I am fighting. I have nothing left to live for. I might as well die in my attempt to please you. I will fight with the Pandavs to the best of my ability. No one can do more than that. As for killing them, it is not possible for anyone to do it. You cannot ask me to do it. I told you even at the beginning of the war that I will not kill the Pandavs. They are as dear to me as you are. But be assured that I will try my best to defeat them. Go, my child, go and sleep. You have been hurt very much by the arrows of Bheem. Here is a potion. Drink it. It will relieve you of your pain. Bheeshm gave him the potion and sent him to bed tenderly. 9. Shikhandi's vain attempts. The 7th day of the war dawned. Bheeshm arranged his army in the mandala vaya. It was a circular formation. It was difficult to penetrate. Yudhishthir asked Arjun to arrange their army in the Vajravaya. It was almost as impregnable as that of the Kauravas. The encounter began. Drona attacked Virat and Drupad. Ashvathama attacked Shikhandi. Duryodhan met Drishtadhum. Nakul and Sahdev opposed their uncle Salya. Vinda and Anuvinda fought with Arjun. Bhim was opposing Kritvarma. Abhimanyu was facing Chitrasena, Vikarna and Dusashun. Bhagat was facing Ghatoat-kuch. Satyaki fought with Alambusa the Rakshas. Purusravas met Drishtakata and Yudhishthir was facing Sratayos. Chekithan was facing Kripa. Today's war promised to be a series of duels. Arjun looked at the army and spoke in an angry voice to Krishn, "Look at the skill of Bheeshm. Look how he has arranged his army. He thinks that we will not be able to enter it without a great loss to us. There are the Trigardas waiting for a fight with me. I am going to destroy them today." Arjun twanged the string of the Gandiv. He began to rain arrows on the Trigardas and all the kings who had assembled to defy him. The army was being shaken out of the formation. Arjun dispatched the Astra by name Indra. It began to rain arrows on the opponents. It caused panic in the enemy ranks. The phalanx was broken up in a matter of moments. The army rushed to Bheeshm for succor. Bheeshm was the raft that would save them from being drowned. Susharma, the king of the Trigardas, had to beat a hasty retreat. Bheeshm hastened towards Arjun. Duryodhan was very upset to see the prowess of Arjun and the way he had broken up the phalanx. He came quickly to Susharma, who was to have guarded the vaya. He said, "My grandfather is going to fight with Arjun. It is up to you all to support him. Please protect him from the enemies." The king hurried to the neighborhood of Bheeshm. The old man suddenly attacked Arjun. With his silver chariot and the white horses yoked to it, the grand old man presented a fine picture as he drove towards Arjun. The fight was terrible. Never before had they fought as they fought today. There was no fight at all in any other part of the field. Everyone was bent on watching this duel, which looked as though it would never end. It was not possible to look at the terrible form of Bheeshm. Surrounded by the Trigardas and the brothers of the king, he was formidable. Duryodhan was behind him. The others now began their fights. Drona fought with Virat. His bow was broken by Virat. His banner was cut too. His charioteer was the next victim. Drona killed the charioteer of Virat. Virat ascended the chariot of his son Sankha, and the two of them fought with Drona. They fought beautifully. The great Drona was furious with them. He sent a terrible arrow against Sankha. The arrow pierced the armor of the young man and fell on the ground, red with the blood of the young prince. Sankha's bow fell from his lifeless fingers, and his body fell out of the chariot. Virat saw his son dead. This was the third child of his to die. He was very angry with Drona. But he was helpless against his power. He left the chariot and went away from the battlefield with his head downcast. Everyone was sorry for Virat. But it was all part of one's luck. War meant death, death of one's nearest and dearest. Drona continued his work of destruction. The duel between Ashvathama and Shikhandi was still going on. Shikhandi hurt his opponent with 3 arrows which lodged on his forehead. Angry because of the extreme pain, Ashvathama killed the charioteer of Shikhandi and his horses too. With a sword in his hand, Shikhandi whirled it about his bead and fought with Ashvathama. He looked like a hawk wheeling about his prey. It was a terrifying sight. Ashvatthama sent a number of arrows at him. Shikhandi warded off all the arrows with his sword. He flung the sword at Ashvatthama and jumped into the chariot of Satyaki. Satyaki fought with Alambusa. Alambusa tried his Maya tactics. He was considered to be invincible. But he was no match for Satyaki. He rained arrows from the sky on Satyaki. But Satyaki sent Indra Astra, which destroyed the Maya of the Rakshas. Arrows flowed from the Astra like drops of rain, and Alambusa could not face this. He fled away from Satyaki's presence. Drishtadhum fought with Duryodhan. The king fought very valiantly. He treated the onslaught of Drishtadhum with contempt. He was made to lose his chariot by Drishtadhum. Duryodhan fought on foot. Shakuni came to his help. He gave his chariot to the king. After a while Duryodhan was defeated by Drishtadhum. Satyaki concentrated on the destruction of the army. Kritvarma faced Bheem. Bheem killed his horses and he made his banner fall down. Kritvarma felt as though his body had been broken up into fragments. He had to get into the chariot of Shakuni and withdraw from the fight. Bheem had now time to do his favorite task, the destruction of the elephant army. The Kaurav army was doing its best to withstand the attack of the Pandavs. But it was not possible. Their valor was just insignificant in front of that of the opponents. The water of the Ganga is sweet. But the sweetness is lost when the river loses itself in the sea. Even so the valor of the Kauravs was being swallowed up by the greater valor of the Pandavs. No blame could be attached to the Kauravs. They fought like inspired beings. Only, the other side was too powerful. It looked as though the Kauravs were bent on just one thing, the reaching of the heavens meant for those who die on the field of battle. The fight between Bhagat and Ghatoat-kuch was one of the highlights of the day. In a chariot glowing like the morning sun, Ghatoat-kuch approached the king of Pragjyotish. Bhagat was seated on his wonderful elephant. He looked like Indra on his white elephant Airavata. The fighters were equally matched. Each hurt the other and each was treating the other with contempt. The smile did not leave the face of Bhagat when he received the intensely sharp arrows of Ghatoat-kuch. He killed the horses of his chariot. In anger Ghatoat-kuch hurled a javelin at Bhagat. But it was caught and broken into 3 pieces. Ghatoat-kuch had to leave the field. He could not fight with this wonderful opponent. The elephant of Bhagat began to destroy the army of the Pandavs. Salya fought with his nephews Nakul and Sahdev. He was pleased with their valor. With a smile he felled the banner of Nakul, and with an arrow he killed his charioteer. The horses were the next to be killed. Nakul got into the chariot of Sahdev. Together they fought against their uncle. Sahdev was furious with his uncle. He threw a terrible javelin at him. It robbed Salya of his senses and he fell down in a faint. His chariot was led away from the field. It was midday. Yudhishthir sped in the direction of the warrior called Srutayos. He began his attack with a big shower of arrows. Srutayos returned the attack of Yudhishthir. One of his arrows broke the armor of Yudhishthir. But Yudhishthir treated it casually. He sent an arrow which cut the banner of Srutayos and felled it to the ground. Yudhishthir looked like an angry cobra. The field was amazed at the expression on the face of the Pandav prince. They had always seen Yudhishthir as a gentle and pleasant person, and this aspect of him was terrible. They could not believe that he was capable of so much anger. The fight went on. Srutayos sent an arrow which was aimed at the chest of Yudhishthir, who cut it into fragments. Yudhishthir killed the horses of Srutayos. With his horses killed, Srutayos was afraid to continue the fight. He ran away from the field. Yudhishthir went unchallenged into the army and began to destroy it. Kripa fared badly in his fight with Chekithan. He had to be carried out of the field by Shakuni. 3 of the brothers of Duryodhan were harassing Abhimanyu. But Abhimanyu soon had them at his mercy. He could have killed them. But he remembered the oath of his uncle, and so left them alive. Bheeshm came to the rescue of the Kaurav princes. He now faced Abhimanyu. Arjun saw it. He said, "Krishn, grandfather is going to have a tough time with our young lion. Take my chariot wherever you please. I am bent on destroying this army. Let us proceed." Arjun passed through the ranks, raining havoc. He was stopped by Susharma. Arjun said, "Listen to me, Susharma. I know that you are a great fighter. I also know that you are still nursing that ancient hatred against me. It began with the days of the Rajasuya. You have not forgiven me for defeating you then. Come, let me show your ancestors to you in a few moments." There was a fight. The Trigardas attacked Arjun from all sides. The fight was long and fearful. Arjun killed many of the supporters of Susharma and proceeded towards the chariot of Bheeshm. Shikhandi and several others came to the help of Arjun. Duryodhan and Jayadratha saw Arjun proceeding towards Bheeshm. A team came to protect Bheeshm. The 5 Pandavs had reached the chariot of Bheeshm. It was a grand sight. Bheeshm faced all of them with a smiling face. His bow was raining arrows on all of them. But his face was raining smiles on these dear grandsons of his. It looked like rain falling while sunshine is warming the earth. Bheeshm was proud of the valor of the sons of Pandu. Yudhishthir was standing undaunted when the arrows of Bheeshm fell on him. Nakul and Sahdev had come there after the retreat of Salya. Bheem was of course there. The king Duryodhan and Jayadratha hurried to the spot. Kripa and Salya with Sala, Chitrasena, and others came to the help of the commander. The old man was in excellent form. He tore the Pandavs to pieces. They had absolutely no chance against him. Yudhishthir was very angry with Bheeshm. He looked at Shikhandi and said, "Shikhandi, you have sworn to kill Bheeshm. You must kill him soon. He is terrible, as his name implies. The Pandav army cannot stand this much longer. You will have to hurry up." Shikhandi hurried to the chariot of Bheeshm. But Salya intervened and challenged him. Bheeshm was fighting furiously with Yudhishthir. Bheem was opposing Jayadratha. Both lost their horses and chariots. Both were fighting on foot. Bheem hit Jayadratha with his mace and made him run away from the field. Chitrasena fought with Bheem, only to faint in the duel, hit by the mace of Bheem. Bheeshm seemed to concentrate on Yudhishthir today. He was continuing the fight, which began some time back. Yudhishthir lost his chariot and used Nakula's chariot. The 3 brothers fought with Bheeshm. But he was too strong for them. Other kings came to the help of the Pandavs. All their combined efforts were of no avail against Bheeshm. He fought like one possessed. It was not possible to do anything to prevent the ruin in their army. Arjun was busy fighting with the Trigardas. They were deliberately making him take up their challenge and taking him away from the neighborhood of Bheeshm. Arjun was able to destroy a major portion of the Trigarda army. But he had to see the devastation in his army and could do nothing to prevent it. The sun had set. The war had to be stopped. Each one returned to his tent. The Pandavs were successful in the individual duels. But the loss in the army was considerable. They were not so jubilant today as they were on the other days. Yudhishthir was very thoughtful. He had to do something about the old man. Whenever Shikhandi went towards his chariot, Bheeshm would turn his face away from him and fight with someone else. This was making Shikhandi indignant. But he could do nothing about it. The promised duel with Bheeshm seemed as though it would never be fought. Shikhandi was the one person who could remember his previous birth. He thought of himself not as Shikhandi but as Amba. The sight of Bheeshm woke up the Amba in him. He wanted to release Bheeshm from the human bondage which made him a confirmed bachelor. Death would release him from his oath. Amba wanted him to be free. But Bheeshm could not understand the message of Amba. If only he would face him, then freedom would be his for the asking. Thoughts like these crowded the mind of Amba. She smiled to herself and said, "Tomorrow. I will see if I can kill him tomorrow." 10. Ghatoat-kuch's valor. The 8th day of the war dawned. The Kaurav army was arranged in the Awarmai Vaya. Awarmai is the ocean. Bheeshm made the army to spread on either side like the waves of the sea. Yudhishthir asked Arjun to arrange their army in the formation called Sringataka. It was in the form of horns. Both the Vayus were unusual. It was the speciality of Bheeshm and Arjun to vie with each other in this art. The hostilities began. The general fight was on. Among the individual duels, several were noteworthy. At the outset there was a dreadful duel between Bheeshm and Bheem. Bheem harassed his grandfather. He covered him with a cloak of arrows. He killed his horses and his charioteer. Duryodhan was alarmed at this. He proceeded to the spot with his brothers. Bheem was terrible today. He saw the brothers of Duryodhan. He decided that he would kill as many of them as he could. He killed 8 of them one after another. Duryodhan was watching the slaughter, and he could do nothing about it. Bheem's oath came back to his mind. He rushed up to Bheeshm and poured out his grief. He said, "Look at Bheem. He has got to be killed. He has killed 8 more of my brothers. Try as they might, my soldiers are not able to stand up against him. They are all being destroyed. Your indifferent and partial attitude are responsible for all this. You are allowing this because you are not in the least affectionate towards me. I do not know what I am to do now." Bheeshm said, "Your words, my child, are cruel. I am fond of you. If I had not loved you I could have stayed away from this war, and so could your guru Drona. You have been under the impression that the Pandavs will be easily killed. And I have been telling you again and again that it is not possible to kill the Pandavs. Duryodhan, you and your brothers are sure to be killed in this war by Bheem. There is no doubt about it. Whenever and wherever Bheem meets a son of Dhritarashtra, he will kill him at once. It has to happen that way. You cannot do anything about it. You tried to save your brothers. Could you do it? No. Bheem is terribly angry with you. I cannot prevent the revenge of Bheem. I can only say this, make up your mind to die. See that you die a brave death. From now on, concentrate on fighting, and not on the things that are beyond the power of man." With these harsh words Bheeshm brought the conversation to an end. It was midday. The Pandavs were now attacking Bheeshm in combined teams. But it was all to no purpose. No one could stand against him. Bheem was destroying the elephant army and Nakul with Sukhdev was killing all the horses. There was a great loss in the army of the Kauravs. The Pandav army was equally unfortunate. Bheeshm and Drona were bent on killing everyone. At the beginning of the war Iravan, the son of Arjun, and the Naga princess Ulupi, came to the side of the Pandavs. He approached Arjun and said, "My mother Ulupi has sent me to you. She asked me to help you in the war." Arjun embraced his son and welcomed him. Iravan had been fighting all these days. Today, he saw that Shakuni was doing a lot of mischief in the Pandav army. Iravan accosted Shakuni. He had brought his army with him. He was almost the equal of Arjun in prowess. He looked like Abhimanyu in the way he handled his weapons. He hurt Shakuni very badly. Duryodhan was watching this fight. He went to Alambusa and told him, "Arjun's son is harassing Shakuni. You must fight with him. You must use your Maya tactics and destroy him. He has become dangerous." Alambusa went and challenged Iravan. There was a terrible fight between the two. Iravan won the praise of the heroes on both the sides. But he could not for long withstand the Maya tactics of Alambusa. The Rakshas cut his head off from his body. The Pandav army was being burnt up by Bhishma, Drona, and Ashvatthama. There was no way of stopping their fury. The Pandavs said, "This is impossible. There is no use in fighting with them. There is no one who can defy this team." Seeing Iravan dead, Ghatoat-kuch sprang into action. Duryodhan had to suffer the Maya tactics of the Rakshas. Ghatoat-kuch played with the Kaurav army as a cat plays with an army of rats. Everyone was terrified of him. Ghatoat-kuch's anger was all against Duryodhan. He would not leave him alone. He challenged him again and again. He fought with all the kings who came to help Duryodhan. Bhishma heard the noise in the army which had become panicky because of Ghatoat-kuch. Bhishma said, "I am afraid Duryodhan will not be able to withstand the power of Bhim's son. But for the fact that Bhim has sworn to kill our Duryodhan, Ghatoat-kuch would have killed him long ago." Hearing his words, several of the warriors went to help Duryodhan. They were all there, Drona, Ashvatthama, Jayadratha, and many others. Ghatoat-kuch was only more excited than ever on seeing this host. He welcomed all of them. He terrified everyone. He was shouting out in his powerful voice. Yudhishthir heard his war cry. He called Bhim and said, "Bhim, I hear the beautiful voice of my child Ghatoat-kuch. I saw several of the Kaurav heroes hurrying towards him. I am worried about his safety. I cannot send Arjun there since he is busy defending the sons of Drupad against the wrath of Bhishma. I want you to go and help your son. The enemies may prove too strong for the strongest of our warriors. Go and join your son." Bhim hurried to the help of his son. Father and son now proved a formidable pair. They were impossible to defy. The army of Duryodhan was destroyed in no time. Duryodhan was mad with anger. He came to fight with Bhim. Several of the warriors on either side joined the father and son, and the fight became general once again. Ashvatthama took the place of Drona. He was helped by Duryodhan. They fought for a while. But when Bhim lifted up his mace and tried to kill Duryodhan, they fled from his presence. Like Bhishma on the side of the Kauravas, Bhim was invincible on the side of the Pandavs. His son was terrifying all the Kauravas with his valor. No one could see what was happening. No one could tackle him. Several of them had fainted away since they could not stand his powerful weapons. Almost all of them were running towards the camp. There was panic in the Kaurav army. The triumphant noise of the conchs blown by the Pandavs showed that the army of Duryodhan had been completely routed by Ghatoat-kuch. Duryodhan went to his grandfather and told him about the happenings so far. He wanted him to go and kill Ghatoat-kuch. Bhishma said, "Listen to me, child. I cannot do anything now. I am busy here. I will send Bhagat to tackle young Ghatoat-kuch." Bhagat went on his famous elephant Supritika to fight with Ghatoat-kuch. The Pandavs were ready to meet this great man. Bhim, Abhimanyu, Ghatoat-kuch, the sons of Draupadi, and several others. Bhagat rushed towards Bhim first. All the heroes, all of them, began to harass the coming elephant with their arrows and javelins and maces. But the course of the elephant was unimpeded. Its head was covered with blood. But still it was advancing. The entire army was held at bay by just one elephant. There now came the king of the Dasavarnas. He brought his elephant to the combat. He was able to make the elephant of Bhagat stop in its course. The two elephants were standing, each blocking the path of the other. It was a wonderful sight. The elephant of Bhagat would not budge by the breadth of a hair even. Bhagat sent arrow after arrow against the king of the Dasavarnas, who had to retreat. There was a loud cheer set up on the side of the Kauravas. The Pandavs joined up and began to harass Bhagat. In the meantime, Arjun was doing good work wherever he went. He joined Bhim and Ghatoat-kuch. Duryodhan sent a big army to combat these heroes. There was another huge slaughter. Bhagat with his elephant was working havoc in the army of the Pandavs, and Ghatoat-kuch with Bheem and Arjun was doing his bit. Arjun had just heard about the death of his son Ravan. He was so unhappy because this war was the cause of the death of so many innocent people. Because of the obstinacy of Duryodhan, a young man who was the only hope of his mother, had to die a pitiable death. It was all so unnecessary. He spoke to Krishn. This is what my uncle Vidur predicted long ago. He said that there would be an end of the Kauravas and the Pandavs. That was why he tried to prevent this war. Krishn, look on these two armies. They were so huge just a week back. So many innocent people have been killed by the Kauravas and by us. It is better to die a beggar than to kill so many people for the sake of a throne. I hate this war, Krishn. I can see now why Yudhishthir was prepared to accept 5 villages. I then thought that it was beneath his dignity to ask a boon of our cousin. But now I realize what a noble motive prompted my brother to ask for peace even at the cost of his self-respect. All this is because of Shikhandi, the evil mentor of Duryodhan. If only he had been killed long before he could influence that cousin of ours. I am sorry I have been Kshatriya. I am murdering so many people for no fault of theirs. But this is not the time to look back. Take my horses towards the army of the Kauravas. Let me do some more killing before the day is done. It is nearing evening. Bheeshm met Arjun once again. In the meantime the fight between the Kauravas and Bheem had not abated. Ghatoat-kuch was still there. Duryodhan sent some more of his brothers to join in the fight. He was also there. Bhagat was fighting gloriously with Ghatoat-kuch. His elephant Supritika was as grand as ever. It would not let the showers of arrows to upset it in any manner. Bheem met the sons of Dhritarashtra again in battle. He began to destroy them one by one. 8 more of them were killed. The army had to retreat. They lost all inclination to fight. Duryodhan was heartbroken. 24 of his brothers had been killed by Bheem. The battlefield was a very depressing sight to either army. It was literally strewn with the bodies of dead people. There was a gruesome spectacle of bodies without heads, heads without bodies, jeweled arms which had been cut off from bodies, arms with swords and arrows and bows and javelins still clasped in them. The bodies of the dead elephants and horses were all over the field. The sun had set. The terrible day was done. The 8th day of the great war had come to an end. The heroes returned to their camps. The losses on both the sides were heavy. But the Pandavs were gaining. Bheem and Ghatoat-kuch had worked ruin in the army of the Kauravas, not to speak of Arjun and Abhimanyu. 11. The night in Bheeshm's tent. Duryodhan was extremely unhappy. The only person who could comfort him was Radhaya. He went to his dear friend and told him all that he had been suffering for the last 8 days. He told him about the death of his 24 brothers. He told him about the dwindling of his army. He complained against the way his grandfather was fighting. Radhaya listened to everything. He was a great comfort to the bruised heart of Duryodhan. After a while he said, "Please do not be so unhappy, my dear friend. I am sorry for you. There is nothing in this world that will give me joy except to see the smile on your face. I am prepared to give my life for you. I am grieved to hear about the death of your brothers. It is fate. No one can defy fate. I do not know how I am to comfort you." Duryodhan said, "Drona, Bheeshm, Salya and Kripa, they all refuse to kill the Pandavs. They are destroying the army quite willingly. But that is not enough. Arjun is destroying our army and Bheeshm is destroying theirs. That is all that has been happening so far. Nothing remarkable has happened. I am quite diffident now about winning the war. The fact that you are not in the war has a lot to do with this depression of mine? I do not see any way out of this. Radhaya said, Duryodhan, your grandfather is very fond of the Pandavs. He is not strong enough either to conquer the Pandavs. Please ask him to withdraw from fighting. Ask him to lay down his arms. I will take up my arms to please you. I will bring the smile back to your face. I will kill Arjun. You must go to your grandfather now and tell him that Radhaya will begin fighting if Bheeshm lays down his weapons. Tell him that I will concentrate on the killing of Arjun, who is a favorite of all of them. I will not care about the destruction of the army. Duryodhan was very pleased with the words of Radhaya. He decided to visit his grandfather. Duryodhan went to the tent of his grandfather. He sat near him after saluting him. He said, Grandfather, I know that you are powerful enough to fight with the gods. I was sure that victory would certainly be mine since I had you to command my army. But my hopes seem to be just dreams. You have not killed even one of the sons of Pandu. I never thought that the war would continue so long. I was sure of its being over in a day. It is all because of your affection for the Pandavs that I am losing. You are destroying their army. I do not want that. I want the death of the Pandavs. Either you are too fond of them to kill them, or you are nursing some grievance against me. I am really very unfortunate. If you do not like this war, let Radhaya fight. He will do what is dear to me. Duryodhan sat silent after these words. Bheeshm was hurt by these cruel words of Duryodhan. He was angry, but he did not speak harshly to Duryodhan. He sat silent for a while. Then he lifted his angry eyes and looked at Duryodhan, as though he would burn him up. But his words were gentle. He said, Duryodhan, why do you do this to me every day? You are wounding me with your terrible words. I am performing for you a great sacrifice. The greatest victim in this sacrifice is myself. I am killing myself to please you. And yet you talk like this. Can you not still see that I cannot kill the Pandavs? Whether I want to or not is a different matter. Even if I want to, I cannot kill them. They are invincible. I have told you this again and again. But you cannot understand me. Their friend is Krishn. Protected by him who is the protector of the universe, how can they be killed by you or by me or by Drona, or by your friend Radhaya? You are foolish. All the reports about Arjun's prowess and the proofs that you have had are not enough to make you realize that I am not the person to kill the Pandavs. Tomorrow in the war, I will fight excellently. I will burn up the army of the Pandavs. I will destroy the army of the Panchals and the Vrishnis like a forest fire. I will be so terrible tomorrow that the people of the world will talk about it with thrilling words. I can do that and nothing more. Go and sleep. Duryodhan was a bit satisfied, not quite. But he could do nothing. He would have to wait for the death of the Pandavs at the hands of someone else. Who was capable of that except Radhaya? And Radhaya had refused to fight till the death of Bheeshm. He could not see how his problems were to be solved. It was all so depressing. Radhaya was unhappy too. With the passing of each day, he was nearing the day when he would have to fight with his dear and beloved brothers. He was grateful to Bheeshm for this respite. He had been given time to train his mind not to think of the Pandavs as his brothers. 8 days had passed. Radhaya was gradually preparing himself for the dreadful ordeal ahead of him. If Bheeshm did lay down his weapons tomorrow, he would have to fight. He must. Radhaya thought of the past so many years when he had been so impatiently waiting for a chance to fight this duel with Arjun. He now compared it with his unwillingness to enter the battlefield. He was hoping that Bheeshm would continue his leadership. He was not ready yet for the war with his brothers. He was sorry for his friend Duryodhan. He was complaining that Bheeshm, Drona and Kripa with Salya were all fond of the Pandavs and that they refused to kill them. He thought that Radhaya was the only one who hated the Pandavs as much as he did. He was wrong. Radhaya loved the Pandavs now, with a love greater than the love Bheeshm had for them. But he could not tell anyone about it. Poor Duryodhan. Radhaya knew that the Pandavs could not be killed. But his friend did not know it. He would not believe it even when so many people told him about it. Duryodhan had seen the Visvarup of the Lord. But he would not believe that Krishn was the Lord of the universe. What could anyone do with him? How to tell him that the Lord had taken the side of the Pandavs, and they were therefore invincible? Radhaya spent the entire night thinking of the past so many events of his life. The end had come. It was all a matter of days. Radhaya prayed for strength to withstand the bonds of affection for his brothers, strength to be loyal to Duryodhan, who was his only friend. Radhaya prayed for his good name, and for his death on the field of battle. His eyes would not sleep. So passed the night. 12. Bheeshm the Forest Fire. The 9th day of the war dawned. Duryodhan was excited since his grandfather had promised to fight his best today. He spoke to Duryodhan, "We are sure to win today. Our wish of the last so many years is to be realized. The greatest task for us today is the protection of Bheeshm. You must make arrangements for a team of our heroes to be surrounding Bheeshm all the time. He has said that he will not fight with Shikhandi. Please see to it that he does not come in front of our grandfather. If today is as successful as I am hoping, we need have no worry about the future. Go and see to the arrangements." He looked at the arrangements of the enemies. He said, "Duryodhan, the right wheel of the chariot of Arjun is protected by Uttamaja, and the left wheel is guarded by Yudhishthir. Arjun, in his turn, is protecting Shikhandi. You are to take care that Shikhandi does not appear before grandfather." Arjun in his turn told Yudhishthir, "See to it that in front of Bheeshm is placed the chariot of Shikhandi. I will guard him." Bheeshm had arranged his army in the via called Sarvedobhadra. It meant safe on all sides. It justified its name. Bheeshm was at the front as usual. He was guarded by Kripa, Kritvarma, Shakuni, Jayadratha, Kamhoja, and the sons of Dhritarashtra. The Trigardas were there, arrayed formidably. The Pandavs arranged their army in an equally formidable phalanx. Yudhishthir, Bhim, Nakul, Sahdev, and the sons of Draupadi were all at the front. Leading the constellation were Arjun, Yudhishthir, Shikhandi, Ghatoat-kuch and Chekithan. Behind them were stationed Abhimanyu, Drupad, and the 5 Kakaya brothers. The fight began. Abhimanyu attacked the army of Duryodhan. He was bent on destroying everyone. No one was able to prevent him from breaking into the via. The warriors on both sides were so pleased with his excellent methods of fighting. He was like a comet raining fire and brimstone. With his golden bow and his golden jewels which gleamed on his arms and chest, he looked like a thundercloud. His bow was almost full circle, so incessantly was it bent. It made a halo round his face. Drona and Kripa, with the powerful Ashvathama and Jayadratha, were not able to withstand him. It looked as though there were 2 Arjuns instead of 1. Duryodhan said, "This Abhimanyu is another Arjun. We have got to do something to stop him." He called Alambusa and asked him to challenge Abhimanyu. Alambusa went to Abhimanyu and summoned him to a fight. The sons of Draupadi came to the help of Abhimanyu, and the 6 of them defied Alambusa. With his Maya, Alambusa caused a darkness to fall on the field. It was the sword of darkness that hit you in the face. Abhimanyu was very angry with Alambusa. He invoked the astra called Surya. It shed a brightness on the field and the darkness lifted suddenly. People were so pleased with the prowess of the young son of Arjun. All the Maya tactics of Alambusa were counteracted by the astras of Abhimanyu. Alambusa abandoned his chariot and went away from the field of battle. Bheeshm now faced Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu, who was a combination of Krishn and Arjun, was not a bit upset at the onslaught of his great-grandfather. Arjun joined his son. The brothers of Duryodhan surrounded the old man. The other Pandavs came to the help of Arjun and Abhimanyu. The fight was wonderful. Kripa was challenged by Satyaki, and a duel began. Kripa fell down in his chariot, unable to stand the power of Satyaki's arrows. Ashvathama came to his rescue. Satyaki cut the bow of Ashvathama into two. Taking up another bow, Ashvathama sent arrows which could break up even a mountain, so sharp were they. They made Satyaki faint. But in a moment he recovered from the faint, and attacked Ashvathama with renewed vigor. The arrows of Satyaki covered him completely. Drona came to the rescue of his son. It was now a duel between Satyaki and Drona. It looked like the impact of the two planets, Mercury and Venus. Arjun hurried to the help of his beloved Satyaki. Arjun was the favorite pupil of Drona, and Drona was more dear to Arjun than his own father. But all that had to be forgotten. They fought with intense fury. Duryodhan was afraid to let duels be fought. He dispatched Susharma to the spot. Duryodhan was afraid that Drishtadhum would come to the help of Arjun, and it was well known that Drishtadhum was born to kill Drona. Arjun's method of fighting brought tears to the eyes of Drona. He was proud of his pupil, and he had to fight against him. He cursed himself for having adopted the role and dharma of a Kshatriya. Arjun invoked Vayu and sent the Vayavyastra. There was a terrible gale, and it caused terror in the army of the Kauravas. Drona invoked the astra called Sela. It made the gale abate. He smiled at his pupil as if to say, "I had to do it, my child." Arjun smiled back as if to say, "Yes, I quite see that you had to do it." The Trigardas beat a hasty retreat. Duryodhan, accompanied by most of the Kaurav heroes, went to Bheeshm and supported him in his fight with the other Pandavs. Bheeshm was fighting with Yudhishthir. Bhim grabbed his mace in his hand and tried to hurt Bheeshm. The elephants intervened frantically and lured him away from Bheeshm. It was pleasing to Bhim to kill that army. What was left of the elephant army of Duryodhan had to go away from the vicinity of Bhim. The Pandavs now saw the fury of Bheeshm. He began to fight like one possessed. They had to just stand and watch. They could do nothing. He was the god of fury. He had decided to work havoc. He set about it systematically. Drishtadhum, Shikhandi, Virat, Drupad, and the Pandavs were all together trying to ward off his onslaught. But they could do nothing. 1,000 arrows were shot at Bheeshm. But nothing happened. Bhim and Satyaki joined the fight. It was futile. The heap of dead bodies grew larger every moment. The field was caught in the grip of a terrible fear. Bheeshm had decided to kill all of them. All the Kauravas were round the Kuru veteran, and all the heroes on the other side were round Drishtadhum. It was just a general defense. No duels were fought anymore. It was not possible. Arjun was being harassed continually by the Trigardas. He had to accept their challenge. It was the rule of fighting. No one could refuse a challenge. Bheeshm came to the help of the Trigardas, who were faring not too well with Arjun. Yudhishthir and the twins were trying to balk the attempts of Bheeshm. But they could do nothing to him. They were able to kill a large portion of the personal army of Duryodhan. A large slice of it was destroyed. Duryodhan was very much upset by this. He went to his uncle Salya and said, "Yudhishthir seems to be as powerful as Bhim or Arjun. As for Nakul and Sahdev, they seem to be worthy nephews of a great man like you. Nothing can stop their fury. I want you to go and fight with them." Accordingly, Salya came to fight with his nephews, and with Yudhishthir, who had so much respect for Salya. He was quite unhappy at the trick of fate which made him fight with the Pandavs, who were almost his children. They were the sons of his dead sister, and he had to fight with them because of his own foolishness. It was no use blaming fate for this. With a shrug of impatience, the grand old uncle of Nakul and Sahdev went forward to fight. Bheem came to help Yudhishthir. The four of them were able to defy the team, which had Salya as the leader. Bhishm's fury had not abated. On the contrary, it increased with the heat of the sun. The army of the Pandavs was being destroyed at an alarmingly fast rate. The sight was terrible. Words cannot describe the panic in the heart of everyone. Krishn spoke to Arjun, "This man has decided to kill everyone except the 5 sons of Pandu. You have got to save our army. Arjun, you must remember your words, that, single-handed, you would kill all the foremost fighters on the side of the Kauravas. Now is your chance. Please look at your army. Come, Arjun. I will take you to your grandfather. Kill him without mercy." Arjun answered in a listless voice, "Krishn, I do not want to kill all my dear relatives. The kingdom, which we are going to win after this, will be distasteful. I prefer to go to hell than live this life on earth, which is worse than hell. Take me to the presence of Bheeshm. I will try to do as you say." Krishn was very angry with Arjun for his words. The Pandav brothers and the other heroes looked at the chariot of Arjun and heaved a sigh of relief. Arjun was the raft which would save them from drowning. Arjun advanced. With his first arrow he cut the palm tree banner of Bheeshm. The next few arrows broke the bow of Bheeshm. Bheeshm took up another bow and continued to fight. Arjun broke that bow. Bheeshm was very pleased with the quickness of Arjun. He said, "Excellent, Arjun. It is a pleasure to fight with you." The duel was the most wonderful thing that they had all seen so far. But Arjun was just sending arrows at the old man. They did not hurt him much. Krishn was exasperated at the softness in Arjun. He could not forgive him this weakness at this critical hour. He saw that every arrow that Bheeshm was sending was taking the life of at least one man. Arjun, on the other hand, was making his arrows fall as softly as flower petals on the form of Bheeshm. At the rate at which the fight was proceeding, the Pandav army would be destroyed in no time. Krishn watched for a few moments more. Suddenly he threw the reins of the horses away from his left hand in disgust. He jumped out of his chariot. He had the chakra in his hand. He went and stood in front of Bheeshm. His face was distorted with anger. Everyone who saw the anger of Krishn shouted, "Bheeshm is killed! Bheeshm is killed!" Bheeshm was quite calm and collected. He smiled at Krishn and said, "Come, my beloved lord, I am happy to see you. I will welcome death at your hands. This is the second time this chance is given to me. I lost it once. I am not going to let you go without fighting with you. I will be the most fortunate person on this earth if the great Lord Narayan releases me from this world of pain. Come quickly. I am waiting." It had all happened within the winking of an eyelid. Arjun was terrified. He fell out of his chariot and at the feet of Krishn. He could not talk properly. His throat was dry with fear. He just caught the feet of Krishn in his 2 arms and looked at him with tears in his eyes. Krishn would not look at him. He tried to shake off the hands of Arjun which were restraining him. He was sighing like a hissing snake. Arjun spoke at last, "I beg of you not to do this. Please save me from the sin of having made you break your promise. The world will call you a liar if you do this. I will not allow this stain on your pure name. I have now woken up from my dream. I remember all that you told me on the first day of the war. I swear that I will keep my word and kill as I said I would. I swear in the name of truth and in the name of our friendship that I will not be false to my promise." Krishn was now pleased. He knew at once that the cloud had lifted from the mind of Arjun. Now there would be no one like him. But he did not show his pleasure. His face was still as it was before. He looked as sullen as the sky just before the break of thunderstorm. Without speaking a word, he quietly got into the chariot and took up the reins. Everyone could see the different Arjun now. He became more terrible than Bheeshm now. He was intent on just one thing, to prove to Krishn that he was able to do what he had promised to do. Still, Bheeshm was invincible. No one could prevent him from the work of destruction on which he was bent. It went on for a long time. Arjun could destroy the Kaurav army in return. But he could not stop the old man from the fury of destruction. Evening had set in. The fighting had to be stopped. The sun had set on the 9th day of the war. It was the most terrible day of all. There was nothing to talk about except the fury of Bheeshm. Everything else paled into insignificance. The Pandavs were just terrified for the first time in their lives. This was something they had not thought possible. They had no hopes of winning the war, not with Bheeshm fighting like this. The Pandav camp was silent today. No conchs were blown. No trumpets announced their happiness. They were all sunk in gloom, in the darkest depths of despair. 13. The Pandavs at the feet of Bheeshm. Yudhishthir was speechless with sorrow. He was helpless against the fury of Bheeshm. He looked at Krishn and said, "Krishn, I am sure we will never be able to win this war. Look at Bheeshm. It is impossible to fight with him. We have been trying for the last 9 days to stop him. But it is not possible. I can see my army melting away at the approach of Bheeshm, and I am not able to do anything about it. You must tell me what should be done. I find it hard to fight with my grandfather. It is easier to fight with Indra with his weapon Vajra. It is easier to fight with Varun with his noose. It is easier to fight with Kuber with his mace. It is easier even to fight with Yama and his Gada. But I cannot face my grandfather and his snake-like arrows. They burn up my army, and I am helpless. I feel that the only thing to do is to accept defeat and go back to the forest. Anyone who advances towards the Kuru commander suffers the fate of the moth which flies towards a flame. I have been the cause of so much unhappiness to my brothers. Because of my foolishness, they had to spend years in the forest. Now, because of my foolishness, they have to suffer the arrows of my grandfather. I look to you for salvation. Krishn, you must save me and this poor army of mine from Bheeshm. Tell me now to kill him." Krishn was full of compassion for Yudhishthir. He was very gentle in his speech. Krishn said, "Yudhishthir, please do not give way to despair. You have your brothers. You have me. They may be overcome by affection for Bheeshm. But I will not be affected. I will challenge him. Even under the eyes of the sons of Dhritarashtra, I will kill him. Single-handed. Once Bheeshm is killed, victory is yours. I will be the death of Bheeshm. See me tomorrow. I will kill him using my astras. The enemies of the Pandavs are the enemies of Krishn. Those who are your friends are mine too. As for this dear brother of yours, this Arjun, he is my dearest friend. I am prepared to cut up my flesh into little bits and give it to him. I am so fond of him. He too is just as fond of me. He will give up his life for my sake. Appoint me as the killer of Bheeshm." Once Arjun swore that he would kill the great Bheeshm. He sent a message to Duryodhan through Aluk, you remember. In the presence of all the heroes on our side, he said that Bheeshm will be his first victim in the war. Loving him as I do, I cannot make the oath of Arjun become false. On his behalf I will kill Bheeshm. Let him give me permission, and I will do it. Or if he makes up his mind, nothing can stop Arjun from killing Bheeshm. The whole burden rests on him. There is nothing impossible for this man who has killed Kalikeya and the Ghatoat-kuch single-handed. Bheeshm is not very hard to kill. Only, Arjun is too sensitive a soul to do this job. A warrior needs to kill compassion and affection first, if he is to be successful. You are all of you too good to be good killers. I am the right person to do it. It needs a man who is beyond the bonds of this earth. It needs a man who has learned to treat the opposites, happiness and sorrow, good and bad, pain and pleasure, with equal indifference. I am that man. To me, everything in this world looks alike. To me, the lion and the deer look alike. Good and bad look alike to me. I believe only in the performance of my duty. I do not attach any importance to the results or fruits of my actions. I am, therefore, free from the blame or the credit that goes with the act. Yudhishthir, let me fight. The sin will not cling to me. I am far beyond the touch of these earthly things. Shed all your worry and leave the killing of Bheeshm to me. I will do it for you. Krishn sat silent. After that, Yudhishthir's eyes were full of tears. He took the hand of Krishn in his and said, "Do you have to tell me that you are able to kill Bheeshm? I know you. You are the end and the beginning of the world. You are the cause of the universe. Without you there will be nothing. There will be no sun and no moon and no stars. You are the eternal soul. You have taken up the lives of the Pandavs in your hands. I have no words to express my gratitude. You are not the charioteer of Arjun alone. You are the charioteer to the Pandavs. You have to steer all of us in the right path. You are prepared to do anything for us. But I am not allowing you to get your name tarnished. I do not want you to be called a liar by the world. You are too dear to me. You have promised Duryodhan that you will not fight in this war, that you will be just a charioteer to Arjun. Please keep that promise. Your hands, white as snow, must not be tainted with blood. I will not have it. I must think of some other way to kill Bheeshm." A few moments later Yudhishthir said, "On the first day of the war, when I went to grandfather to get his permission, he told me that he was fighting for Duryodhan because he had to. I am sure that in his heart of hearts grandfather is fond of us. I will go to him and ask him how we are to kill him. Let us all go to him tonight. We will ask him how we are to kill him. Krishn, if you think that my suggestion is good we will adopt it." Krishn said, "I like your idea. Asked by you, Bheeshm will certainly tell you how he should be killed. Come, let us go." The 5 brothers and Krishn set out late in the night to the camp of the Kauravas. They discarded their armors and they walked with bare feet. It was a dark and terrible night. The camp of Duryodhan was silent. Everyone was asleep. The Pandavs entered the tent of Bheeshm. They prostrated before him. Bheeshm was very excited to see these grandchildren of his. He said, "Come, Krishn, I am so happy to see you. Yudhishthir, Bheem, I am happy to see you. It is good to see Arjun and the handsome Nakul. Sahtev, how are you, my child? Arjun, let me congratulate you on your wonderful fighting. Your son is equally wonderful, if not more. You are very fortunate. And now, what can I do for you? What brought you all here in the middle of the night, on foot, without your armors? Tell me what you want me to do." Yudhishthir was very sad. He looked at the grand old man and said, "My lord, how can we win this war? You said that victory would be ours. You are there on the field sitting in your silver chariot, with your bow bent full circle. You are like a forest fire. You are destroying my army. I can see your arrows raining on us like raindrops from a dark rain cloud. How can we win when you are set on killing all of us? I am here to ask you something which I hate to ask." Yudhishthir could not speak. His tears were choking him. Bheeshm put his hand on the bent head of Yudhishthir. He passed his old gnarled fingers along his back with great love and tenderness. He said, "Tell me, my child. Ask anything of me. If I can help, I will certainly do it." Yudhishthir said, "My lord, unless you are killed we cannot win. I have to ask you how we should kill you. I hate this war. I am sorry I was born a Kshatriya. I have to win this war. I have got to see you killed. I must know how we must set about it." Sobs racked his frame. He could not say anything more. Bheeshm smiled at all of them. Still he kept on stroking Yudhishthir. He said, "You are right. As long as I am alive, there is no chance of your winning. If you are able to kill Bheeshm, victory is yours. You must kill me at once." Yudhishthir said, "I hate to think of you as dead. You are so dear to us. I am so unhappy. I cannot think at all. Can we not win the war without killing you? Is there no other way?" Bheeshm said, "No, my child. There is no other way. But let me assure you, I will be happy to die. I am too powerful to die. I cannot be killed even by Indra. I hate this invincibility of mine. My child, if only you knew how much I am longing for death. I hate this life of mine. I have not been happy. I want death. Yes, my child, I want death. I am pining for death, which will be a merciful release for me. But I cannot be killed. I am so eager to die. I am very grateful to you for asking me how you can kill me." They were listening to his words as though they were under a spell. He continued, "There are only two people who can kill me. One is Krishn and the other is Arjun." Bheeshm took Arjun on his lap and said, "My child, kill me tomorrow. I am so tired. You say you love me. If you do really love me, please kill me and give me the peace I have been longing for." Arjun buried his face in the magnificent chest of his grandfather. He was once again the child who had come to Hastinapur 17 days after the death of their father. They were once again the helpless children who had come to find love and care from the Kuru elders. Bheeshm said, "No one can kill me when I am fighting. If you find me laying down my weapons, you can kill me. If you bring Shikhandi in front of me tomorrow, I will lay down my bow. I will not fight with him since he was once a woman. I have sworn not to fight with a woman, with a man who was once a woman, or with a man whose name is feminine." This Shikhandi was Amba in his previous birth. Amba was the daughter of the king of Kasi. She was the sister of Ambika and Ambalika, your grandmothers. Bheeshm began to tell them the tragic story of Amba. He told them about her penance and her being born as the son of Drupad because of the boon of Shankar. The Pandavs were listening with bated breath. They knew vaguely that Shikhandi had been born to kill Bheeshm, even as Drishtadhum had been born to kill Drona. But this story of the long ago, the story of the woman who loved Bheeshm so passionately that she was ready to kill him to free him from his oath, the woman whose deep love looked like deadly hatred to the world of ordinary men, the woman who had the power to remember her previous birth, the woman who was the one person who understood the heart of this mighty man, this story made them humble. It was so sacred that they could not look at the great Bheeshm with the reminiscent look in his eyes. They were silent in the presence of that suffering. Bheeshm said, "Amba hates me. I can think of her only as Amba, and not as a man, Shikhandi. Amba hates me. But love and hate have but a shifting connotation. A slight change in the point of view, and they are the same. She is the one person who will grant me release from this bondage of life which has been imposed on me. This burden of life can be thrown away only with the help of Amba. Do not have any misgivings. Place Amba in front of my chariot. Looking at her eyes spitting hatred, I will lay down my arms. Arjun, you must stand behind Amba. You must kill me with your arrows. I can be killed only by you. I assure you, my blessings will rain on you once this is done by you. I will be killed and then victory dot is yours. Go home, my children, and sleep without any worry. I will sleep too tonight. I have not had any sleep for this many a day. I thank you all for letting me sleep with joy in my heart." Bheeshm was shedding tears of joy. The Pandavs were chastened by the tears of Bheeshm. They fell at his feet, and with their eyes wet and their heads hung down, they left the presence of Bheeshm. They saw him seated, with a strange unearthly smile on his lips. He looked as though he had already begun his journey to heaven. He looked like a god who was just resting for a few moments on the earth. He suddenly looked young and happy. Krishn smiled back at him and said, "You will be happy from now on. You will not be born again in this world of men. You will be remembered as the greatest man that ever graced the house of the Kurus." Bheeshm smiled his thanks for these words of Krishn. So they left him. The Pandavs reached their camp. With his voice choked with emotion, Arjun said, "Krishn, how can I do it? I think of the old days when we were children. I would be full of dust and mud because of my playing in the mud. I would go to grandfather and rush to his lap. With his white dress soiled by me, he would laugh with me and play with me. I would sit on his lap and call him father. He would smile gently and say, 'I am not your father. I am your grandfather.' Say it, grandfather. I would say grandfather, and he would hug me tight. I remember this when I think of tomorrow. How can I kill this beloved grandfather of ours? How can I enjoy victory which will be a result of this?" Krishn's face was grave. He said, "You have to do it. You are a Kshatriya. You have to win this war. These things will happen. You must be firm about this. Do not let these things upset you. It has been destined that Bheeshm is to be killed by Arjun. When a man is born, the gods decide his death too. It is not in your hands or mine to change the workings of fate. Treat it as your duty and do it. Do not let your affections cloud your mind." Arjun said, "Yes. I will do it. I will do my duty." 14. Shikhandi in the forefront. The morning of the 10th day of the great war dawned. It was a happy day for Bheeshm. He was to die that day. Arjun was very unhappy. But he had decided on the course of action. Krishn saw that he was quite firm, and he was glad about it. Arjun said, "I am definite about what should be done today." Krishn, for the last few days, whenever Shikhandi came to the presence of Bheeshm, grandfather has always avoided fighting with him. So today, I will do what grandfather asked me to do. I will get Shikhandi to stand in front of Bheeshm's chariot. I will then kill grandfather. I will protect Shikhandi from the onslaught of the other Kauravas. They will all be there to kill him, since our grandfather has told them that he will not fight with Shikhandi, and that he is to be the death of Bheeshm. It is well known that Shikhandi is meant to kill Bheeshm. The Pandavs made Shikhandi lead the warriors to the front. The Kaurav army was arranged in the Ajuravaya, and the Pandav army was arranged in the Devavaya. In the forefront was Shikhandi. His chariot wheels were protected by Bhim and Arjun. Behind him were Abhimanyu and the grandchildren of Drupad. Satyaki and Drishtadhum were with them. Yudhishthir and the twins were behind them. The rest of the army was in the charge of Virat and Drupad. They had with them the Kakaya brothers, the powerful Ghatoat-kuch and Drishtadhum. All were ready for the great encounter. The Pandavs decided that Bheeshm should die that day. The Kaurav army was led by Bheeshm, as was the custom. Duryodhan and his brothers were very near the commander. Drona was very near Bheeshm, also Ashvathama, the great Bhagat, Kritvarma and Kripa. Behind these were Shakuni and the king of the Kamhojas, and behind them, the reputed Trigarta brothers. The arrows began to pour out of the bow of Bheeshm. Bheeshm was fighting hard. He was superb. Nakul was in excellent form. With Satyaki and Satdev he was doing good work. Bheeshm's anger began to rise. He began his work of destruction. The Kauravas were speechless with wonder and admiration for Bheeshm. Duryodhan's happiness was great. He found his grandfather more powerful today than on all the other days. He looked so young, and there was a glow of happiness on the brow of the old war veteran. It seemed to Duryodhan as though his grandfather was happier today than he had been all these days. It was ages since he had seen this expression on the face of Bheeshm. Shikhandi accosted Bheeshm. He challenged Bheeshm. Bheeshm sneered at him. He said, "You may be a man now. You may be a great fighter. But to me you are a woman. I will not fight with a woman. I will not accept your challenge. I do not like the very thought of fighting with a woman. It is beneath my dignity." Shikhandi was furious. He said, "I know that you are the greatest of all archers. I know that you fought with the great Bhargav. You preferred to fight with him rather than accept the love of Amba. I have heard all about you. Still, knowing all about you, I have dared to challenge you. I want to please the Pandavs. I want to please myself. Nothing will please me more than this duel with you. I have prayed for it. I have waited for this for a long number of years. I have decided to kill you. I will kill you." Shikhandi sent 5 sharp arrows at Bheeshm and hurt him. Perhaps in her mind, Amba thought of the 5 arrows of God of love when she sent those 5 arrows towards Bheeshm. Perhaps. Arjun came to Shikhandi and said, "I do not think it will be possible for you to fight with this man since he refuses to accept your challenge. You must keep on harassing him. Never leave his presence. I will be by your side. I see all the heroes of the Kaurav army rushing towards us. I will tackle all of them with the help of my brothers and Satyaki. I will have Abhimanyu, Drishtadhum, Drupad and Virat. There is Ghatoat-kuch and the Kakaya brothers who are good fighters. I will manage to keep the Kaurav army from advancing too near us." The Kauravs sensed the danger that was threatening Bheeshm. They saw Bheeshm fighting furiously, and they saw the Pandavs all surrounding Shikhandi. Duryodhan said, "We have to guard grandfather very carefully today. Duryodhan, see that all our men have but one aim, the protection of the commander." He went to Bheeshm and said, "Look at our army being burnt up by Arjun and his powerful son Abhimanyu. Bheem is working furiously. You are the only hope I have. You must save our army from these men. I am afraid they will destroy half the army before evening falls, if you do not kill the hated Pandavs." Bheeshm turned disgusted eyes in his direction. He said, "Even at the beginning of the war I told you that I will not kill the Pandavs. I told you that I would destroy the army of the Pandavs at the rate of 10,000 a day. I have finished that number. I do not like to do more. As for your constant nagging about the Pandavs, I am telling you for the last time that I cannot kill them. I will be killed by Arjun, but I cannot kill Arjun. The Pandavs cannot be killed even by the gods. Why then talk of mortal men like me? Today I will clear all the debts I owe. You and your father. I will die on the battlefield today. You can be sure of that." Bheeshm turned his chariot towards the Pandav army and began his work of destruction. Drishtadhum and Abhimanyu attacked Bheeshm. So did the others, Nakul, Sahdev, Yudhishthir and Kuntabhoja. These men were stopped in their attempts by the Kaurav warriors. Chitrasena was facing Chekithan. Kritvarma attacked Drishtadhum. The old warrior Purusravas was bent on stopping Bheem from nearing Bheeshm. Vikarna met Nakul and Kripa was fighting against Sahdev. Durmukha was fighting with Ghatoat-kuch. Alambusa was, as usual, fighting with Satyaki. The king of the Kambhojas was facing Abhimanyu, and Ashvathama was facing Virat and Drupad. Drona was trying to stop Yudhishthir. Arjun was facing Duryodhan. The army on either side was making for the chariot of Bheeshm. It was the only thing that mattered to them both. There was terrible fighting on the field that day. The duel between Arjun and Duryodhan was wonderful, so much so that people paused in their fights to watch them. The fight between Satyaki and Alambusa was awful since Alambusa, had taken to his Maya tactics and Satyaki had to ward him off with his astras. Bhagavad came to the help of Alambusa. Satyaki left the Rakshas and began to concentrate on Bhagavad. It was not easy to ward off the arrows and javelins which Bhagavad was sending from the top of his elephant. Duryodhan said to those around him, "Please go and help Bhagavad and kill Satyaki, who is one of the best heroes on the side of the Pandavs. If he is killed, victory is ours." Several of them went towards Satyaki. But he was too good for them. Abhimanyu was fighting with the king of the Kamhojas. The fight between Kripa and Satydev was one of the highlights of the day. Satydev was proving to be too powerful for his guru. Ashvathama was by the side of his father. Drona said, "I have strange forebodings. The omens do not speak well for the side of the Kauravas. I have a feeling that some dreadful calamity will befall them today. I have been watching Arjun. He seems to be bent on stationing Shikhandi in front of the commander's chariot, and he is protecting him. My frame is trembling with an unknown fear, and my mouth is dry. This combination of Bhim, Arjun and Shikhandi in the van of the army makes me feel worried about the welfare of Bheeshm. The indications are strong that Arjun will kill Bheeshm today. I feel it. I have never seen so much anger on the brow of Yudhishthir till now. I can see that they are all determined to kill Bheeshm. Please go immediately and ward off the arrows of Arjun which are aimed at Bheeshm. He must be saved at any cost. Let us not think of our lives and our comforts. Let us do our duty towards the kings who have sheltered us all these years. Arjun is invincible. Look at the way they have all hemmed in the commander on all sides, Satyaki, Abhimanyu, Drishtadhum, Bhim, Nakul and Sahdev. Go and prevent the Pandavs from surrounding Bheeshm. He must be saved." Ashvathama hurried to the spot. 15. The fall of Bheeshm. Suddenly Bheeshm became disgusted with the war and the long chain of killing. He became disgusted with himself and his cruelty towards the innocent army. He spoke to Yudhishthir, "My child, I have lost all desire to live. Please make haste and grant me release from this body. It will please me so much if you hasten." Bheeshm continued to fight. Yudhishthir asked his brothers to make Shikhandi face Bheeshm once again. Arjun knew that the most difficult task lay ahead of him now. He had to keep the entire Kaurav army away from the chariot of Bheeshm. All the men were around Bheeshm. Arjun fought as he had never fought before. He had to rout Ashvathama, the Trigardas, the brothers of the king, Salya and so many others led by Kripa and Drona. Bhim and his dear Satyaki, Drishtadhum and Abhimanyu were there. All of them fought desperately and began to scatter the crowd around Bheeshm's chariot. There was a moment when the neighborhood of the silver chariot was empty. It was just a moment. Krishn saw it and said, "Arjun, it is clear that the moment has come. We must hurry to the presence of Bheeshm with Shikhandi." They went fast. The other Pandav heroes surrounded the chariot of Bheeshm. Drishtadhum, Satyaki and the young Abhimanyu were stationed to ward off the approach of the Kaurav warriors. Drona had been caught up in the rear of the army. Shikhandi faced Bheeshm. Arjun was just behind Shikhandi. Bheeshm saw them all there. Bheeshm saw the 5 sons of Pandu, the children whom Dhritarashtra had wronged ever since they were born. He looked at the noble Yudhishthir who preferred 5 small villages to this war. He saw Bhim with his body thin and weak because of the many years of exile. He saw the motherless children, Nakul and Sahdev. In his mind's eye Bheeshm saw Kunti with her sad eyes. He thought of all the sufferings of these 6 and of Draupadi, the daughter of fire. He thought of the scene in the court of Hastinapur 14 years back when Draupadi came to him and said, "You are the eldest and the wisest here. How can you allow this injustice? Can you not speak a word in my defense?" Bheeshm thought of himself and his indifferent attitude. Finally, he looked at the chariot of Arjun and at the charioteer, Krishn. Bheeshm spoke to himself, I can kill all these men in no time, but for the fact that they are protected by Krishn, the Lord of the universe. I have no right to think of the death of the Pandavs. I have caused enough havoc in their army. I have cleared the debt I owed to Duryodhan. I am sick of killing. Bheeshm thought of the day when he brought Satyavati to his father in his chariot. His father said, I grant you a boon. You can hold death at arm's length. You can die when you please. Bheeshm now turned his eyes on Amba. He thought of the day when she looked at him with her eyes full of pleading and said, You took me by my right hand and placed me in your chariot. You are, therefore, my husband. Please accept me. Do not ruin my womanhood. Bheeshm spoke to himself, I can die when I please. I have decided. I want to die. I will welcome death now, at this very moment. The gods who had assembled in the sky heard his inner voice. They seemed to say, Your decision is right. Devavrata, you are doing right. There suddenly blew the sweetest breeze on Bheeshm. It was like the tender caress of his mother's hands. It seemed to say, Come, my child. Come, my son. You are tired. Turn your face away from this war. I will take you with me. I will cool your limbs in the waters of the heavenly Ganga. I will comfort you. Come. Krishn had been watching the face of Bheeshm. He saw him now. He knew that the moment had come. He said, Now. We must hurry. Shikhandi, get ready. Bheeshm is ready to die. Shikhandi began to shoot his arrows at Bheeshm. Bheeshm would not fight back. With lips sternly compressed, lest his sobs should escape, Arjun shot arrow after arrow at the old man who was standing in the chariot with his bow and arrow abandoned. Arjun hated himself. Yudhishthir could not see because of the tears that blinded him. The body of Bheeshm was bristling with arrows. He tried to throw an immense javelin at Arjun. But Arjun cut it into pieces. The arrows were still coming from the Gandiv. Still the old man stood still, and still the arrows came. Duryodhan was by the side of Bheeshm. He said, Look, Duryodhan, these arrows are not those of Shikhandi. They are the arrows of Arjun. No one can kill me except Arjun. He is the one person who is more powerful than me. Look at these arrows. They are all Arjun's arrows. You can see his name on each one of them. Bheeshm was feeling happy and pleased that he had been hurt by Arjun, and by no one else. He was so proud. All the heroes were looking on. Duryodhan was helpless and so were the others. There was no sound on the field. Absolute silence reigned. The drums were silent. The trumpets did not dare to whisper even. There was a hush on the army at that moment. Everyone was intent on watching that immense drama that was being enacted. The sun was nearing the west. He was still glowing in the sky even like Bheeshm with the 1,000 arrows of Arjun. With his body torn to shreds by Arjun, with his face lit up by a smile of excessive beauty, with his eyes resting lovingly on the face of Krishn, the great Bheeshm fell from his chariot. Looking at the fallen ancient of the house of Kurus, the heart of the Kauravas broke. There arose from the heroes a wail which resounded in all the four quarters. It reached the sky and it sounded as though Mother Earth was crying out in pain because of the fall of this greatest of great men, this hero of the Kuru house. Bheeshm did not fall on the ground. He fell on a bed of arrows. It was a bed fitting to the great hero. At his fall the sky sent a shower of rain. Already he looked like one who was not of this world. As he was lying on the ground, Bheeshm heard divine voices saying, The son of Ganga is the greatest of men. How is it that he fell at a time when the sun is proceeding towards the south in his path along the ecliptic? It is now Dakshinayana, and it is not a good time to die. Bheeshm smiled faintly and spoke. He said, Devavrata is fallen. But he is not dead. I will keep my life from leaving this body until Uttarayana comes, until the sun's chariot is turned towards the north in his course in the path of heaven. I will not die before that. Ganga, his mother, sent the rishis from heaven to welcome him. They came in the form of swans. They came and they circled round him. They waited for the fallen giant to speak. He told them about his decision to wait for the coming of Uttarayana and said, "Please be good enough to convey the message to my mother that I must do this if I am to resume my previous form." The swans vanished from the sight of men. The fall of Bheeshm paralyzed everyone. The sons of Dhritarashtra were too stunned even to speak. They wept like children. The thought that the immortal Bheeshm was now no more was a thought that froze the blood in their veins. It was something they could never imagine. Several of them had fallen down in a faint. In the midst of this unrest, Bheeshm was lying with his eyes closed, preparing himself for the end. The Pandavs and the Kauravas were all standing round him with their heads hung down, and with their eyes full of tears. It was pathetic to see Duryodhan. He looked so dreadfully unhappy. He could do nothing. He could say nothing. He just stood near his grandfather, looking at him all the while. Duryodhan had gone to the rear of the army as soon as the great man fell. He went to Drona, and he saw Drona's chariot coming towards the front of the army. Drona was coming to the defense of Bheeshm. The king's brother was going at a fast rate. Drona stopped his chariot and waited for the coming of Duryodhan. The prince broke the news to Drona. The Acharya was not prepared for the shock. He fainted away in his chariot. He had to be revived. He regained his consciousness, and the first thing he did was to recall the troops from the field. The paralyzed army now began to move slowly towards the camps. Warriors from either side began to arrive to the side of Bheeshm. They came one by one. With their feet bare, with their armors laid aside, clad in just ordinary clothes, with their chests covered by the thinnest of upper clothes, the heroes came and stood by the side of Bheeshm. They looked like devas standing in the presence of the creator Brahma. The Pandavs and the Kauravas were there, sharing the same grief. Bheeshm spoke to all of them. He welcomed them and began to talk. Just before he began to speak, he said, "My head is hurting me. I want a pillow." Everyone who was near hurried out, and each brought a pillow. Some were of silk and some were embroidered. In short, they were all pillows fit for the head of a prince. But it annoyed Bheeshm to see all of them. He said, "These pillows are for sleeping at home. But they are not the fitting pillows for one who has fallen on the battlefield. Arjun, consider well and give me a proper pillow." Arjun got up and saluted his grandfather. With his eyes full of tears he said, "I will do it." He took up his bow and shot 3 powerful arrows into the ground near the head of Bheeshm. He placed the head of the wounded man on the pillow of arrows. Bheeshm smiled with great difficulty and said, "Now the pillow is the correct companion for my bed. It is the rule that a kshatriya should have a bed of arrows and nothing else." Bheeshm was very tired. He paused for a moment and spoke again. He said, "My dearest children, I have fallen. I will wait for the coming of the holy Uttarayana, and then my breath will leave my body like a friend taking leave of his heart's dearest friend. Please make arrangements for a ditch to be dug round me so that I can worship the sun undisturbed." Several physicians came to his presence at the command of Duryodhan. They came to remove the arrows from his body and to apply ointments to the wounds. Looking at them and at Duryodhan, Bheeshm said, "My child, send them all away after rewarding them properly. I do not need these ministrations. I have fallen as a kshatriya should. I am lying on a bed of arrows. These arrows must remain in my body, and when I am burnt they should be burnt with me." He was too tired to talk any more. The heroes who had assembled around him retired one by one to their tents. Night had fallen. Duryodhan was sitting by the side of his grandfather. Bheeshm was suffering intensely because of the many hurts he had had. A thirst, an unquenchable thirst, was torturing him. He said that he was thirsty. Duryodhan brought him sweet water and syrups and wines from his tent. But Bheeshm refused it all and said, "Send for Arjun. I want to see Arjun." Arjun was sent for. The Pandavs hurried to the side of Bheeshm. Bheeshm smiled with great difficulty and said, "Arjun, my child, I am thirsty. You are the only person who can satisfy my thirst." Arjun saluted him. He went and brought his Gandiv. Arjun invoked Parjanya and shot an arrow into the ground very near the head of Bheeshm. The earth opened up and a fountain of sweet clear water rose up. It had the sweetness and the perfume of Amrita, the nectar of the gods. It was Ganga who came to quench the thirst of her beloved child. Bheeshm looked at all his grandchildren and said, "Only Arjun and Krishn know this incantation. They are Nar and Narayan. Duryodhan, my child, now that I have fallen, you have no chance of winning the war. Please listen to me. Let all this enmity end with my death. I have told you it is not possible to defeat the Pandavs. I have not been defeated even by my Guru Bhargav, and this Arjun has killed me. If this war is not stopped now, you will all die, perish. Please listen to me. Do as I say. Stop this war." Duryodhan sat silent. Bheeshm knew that his words of advice fell on deaf ears. They were all there for a while. Seeing that Bheeshm was suffering intense pain, all of them left his presence one by one, after saluting him and taking the dust of his feet. Bheeshm closed his eyes and his mind was set firmly towards the higher world. He forgot the earth and all the miseries of this world. 16. Radhaya and Bheeshm. Radhaya was stunned when he heard that Bheeshm had fallen. He was sitting in his tent. He looked like one on whom a thunderbolt had fallen. He could do nothing. He could speak no words. Words would not come. To him, sitting alone in his tent, came Duryodhan. The two friends embraced each other. Till now Duryodhan was stunned. He could not cry. But now, at the sight of his friend, at the touch of his hands, his sorrow broke out. He sobbed into the bosom of Radhaya. He cried and then he stopped. It looked as though there were no more tears to shed. He was limp with the great shock. Radhaya tried his best to comfort him. It was all to no purpose. Radhaya made the unfortunate king to lie down on his own bed and soothed him with loving words. Kind nature took pity on the poor unfortunate Duryodhan. His eyes closed slowly and he slept. Radhaya was sitting by his side looking at the form of his dear friend, the friend to whom he had given his heart and everything that was dear to him. His life was to be given up in a few days for the sake of this man, this Duryodhan who meant everything to him. He had no regrets. These few moments with Duryodhan gave him enough strength to face the Pandavs the next day in battle. Yes, tomorrow he would have to meet his dear brothers on the field of battle. So he sat for a long time. After a while he got up. The night was no longer young. He could go now to Bheeshm. There was silence everywhere. Not a soul was awake. Shocked as they were by the fall of Bheeshm, the Kauravas were all sleeping the sleep of sheer exhaustion. Radhaya hurried with quick and silent steps towards the place on the field where the Kuru ancient had fallen. His mind was in a turmoil. He was nervous about going to Bheeshm. Bheeshm had never liked him. In fact, he disliked him. With this in his mind, Radhaya walked slowly and with great hesitation towards Bheeshm. He came near the great man. He saw him lying on a bed of arrows. His body was full of arrows. His eyes were closed. Radhaya looked at him for a moment. He thought that his heart would break. This man, this great Bheeshm, had been killed by Arjun. And he was his kinsman too. Bheeshm was his grandfather too. With tears choking him he fell at the feet of the great man and held his feet in his hands. Bheeshm opened his eyes. He said, "Who is it? Whose tears are burning me more than these arrows?" Who are you, child, that sheds such hot tears of anguish on my feet? Who are you that is so upset by the sight of me that words refuse to come to your lips? Come near me. I cannot see you. It is dark and my head is hurting me so. I am not able to turn it. Radhaya sobbed out, My lord, I am Radhaya. I am the unfortunate Radhaya, who has never had the good fortune to be liked by you. I have come to pay my respects to you. I would have come earlier, but my lord, I was afraid of being hurt by your words in the presence of others. Hence I waited for night to fall before I could venture into your presence. The eyes of Bheeshm filled with tears. He raised his eyelids slowly and looked at Radhaya with affection. He called him to his side and he embraced him as a father would his beloved son. He said, No, my child. You are wrong. I have never once disliked you. How could I, knowing that you are my grandson? Radhaya said, Yes, my lord, I have been told that you are my grandfather, that I am the son of Kunti, and that the Pandavs are my brothers. I was told all this by Krishn when he came to Hastinapur. But how did you know? Bheeshm said, I knew about it long ago. Vyas told me. But it had to be a secret and my lips were sealed and those of Vidru too. I was in the habit of decrying you. But that was because I did not want your pride to blind you. That was the reason why I dampened your enthusiasm in the court of Hastinapur many times. You would talk badly of the sons of Pandu even though they did you no wrong. That was displeasing to me. In the court of the Kauravas, I would hurt you with my words. It is true. But that was because I was fond of the Pandavs. I do not dislike you. Please believe me, Radhaya. I love you as much as I love Duryodhan. If it had not been for your friendship, Duryodhan would not have thought of this enmity with the Pandavs. That was the reason why I would talk to you so harshly in those days. Please forgive me for that. I know your valor. I know that you are invincible. I know about your generosity. I know that you are the greatest of all givers. There is no one to equal you in archery. You are the equal of Arjun and Krishn. I know how you went and fought with the king of Kasi single-handed, and won a bride for the Kuru prince even as I did in those days of the long ago. I know that Jarasandh, who had easily defeated Krishn, could not stand up to you in battle. I am proud to have you as my grandson. You are a great man. You have always been truthful. You are as glorious as the sun. You are no ordinary mortal. You have a god for your father. Fate has never been kind to you. She has deliberately made you suffer. We cannot guess the will of God. The Pandavs are your brothers. I will be happy, so happy, if you go and join them. If you go, this war will end. Let me be the only one who has been made to die. Let this enmity end with me. Radhaya said, My dear grandfather, if only it had been possible if things had been different. But my lord, things are not what we wish them to be. Once, when Duryodhan and I became friends, I had told him, I will do anything in the world for you. Even if it seems an impossible task, I will be happy to do it and please you. I want to keep that promise to Duryodhan. I will give my wealth, my wife, my children, my body, and this life of mine to Duryodhan. He is the only star in my mental horizon. I will die for him. Duryodhan had nursed this anger against the Pandavs, depending on me and my valor. I cannot let him down. When the gods conspire to ruin a man, what can be done? Nothing. I love the Pandavs and I have to fight them. I must walk to my ruin. I know that we are all going to be destroyed. You have told us and Uncle Vidur has been telling us all these days. I have been watching the omens. I have had dreams too. They all point to the same thing, the destruction of the Kauravas. I know the greatness of Krishn. I know that he has already decided the fates of all of us. A Kshatriya should not die in his bed. The world may think that I am a Sutputra. But I know and you know that I am not a Sutputra. I am a Kshatriya. I am determined to die for my friend Duryodhan. Grandfather, please give me your blessings, I beg you. Please forgive me for all the cruel and harsh words which I have often used against your revered self. The great should forgive the faults of the ignorant. Bheeshm embraced Radhaya and said, Go, my child. Can a grandfather be angry with his grandson? You and Duryodhan mean the same to me. I bless you. This terrible enmity between the cousins cannot be wiped out by anyone. You have got to fight. I know that. Die in the battle like a great hero and reach the heavens. I will be there too. Do your duty as a Kshatriya and die bravely. You will get what you want. Your name will always be remembered by posterity. I will soon join you in heaven. I must wait for the coming of Uttarayana. Radhaya saluted him and said, Grandfather, I have a boon to ask of you. What is it? Said Bheeshm. Radhaya said, Please let this be a secret always. Let the secret of my birth die with me, Bheeshm said. After you have gone, I will tell my Duryodhan about it. Just him, and no one else. He must know the extent of your love for him. But do not be afraid. I will see that he does not tell the Pandavs about it. Radhaya stood with folded hands in front of Bheeshm. The old man embraced him again and bade him adieu. Radhaya hurried to his tent. He stole in silently. He saw that Duryodhan was still sleeping. He lay down quietly by his side. From the doorway of the tent he could see a star in the black sky. He was staring at it for a long time. His mind had found peace after this talk with Bheeshm. It felt as though a thorn had been removed from his mind. He was happy to know that Bheeshm loved him. His blessings made Radhaya look forward to the war. He was happy. Suddenly sleep came to his tired eyes. The two friends slept on the same bed. So they slept till the sun came back to the east to usher in another bloody day. End of Bheeshm Parva.